Happy Monday, degenerates. Welcome on back to the Die Hard MMA podcast. First stream, first breakdown show of 2025 in the beginning of a new era. That's right. If you are stumbling across this live stream, this is the first show on my channel in 6 years. If you are not watching this on YouTube, first and foremost, I beg you, jump on over to YouTube and hit the like and subscribe button. I'm going to count on you guys now more than ever because we're flying solo, baby. This is my show. This is my stream. This is my home website. This is my YouTube channel. And so we're going to need to let the algorithm know where we are, and we're going to need to throw up the bat signal so all the other lost degenerates can find us. How is everybody doing? I have a special shout out to start the show off today. My guy Dream in the chat at timestamp 8:56 this morning when I set this bad boy up. He says first comment and like on the new show on the new channel LFG. My guy Dream, an absolute legend. Let's go. Being tuned in and not short there. After him, we got Glenn Bott and OG Puma doing the same thing. You guys are absolute animals, and I love each and every one of you. Sam Gambit in the house. Colby Saul Dixon Cider making his appearance. My guy Ethan Hershey, and of course in the chat, a free UFC bet pick, somebody who we are all very, very familiar with. Low T City Ortega saying, "Go Lions!" How dare you? I mean, come on, first stream on the new channel, and this is your first comment. Is go how? I have half a mind to block you for that one. No, I'm kidding. That was yeah. I'm a pained Vikings fan as always. We will forever be in that middle area of good, but just not quite good enough. Your Lions got us. Our defense showed up, and Sam Darnold was seeing ghosts. What can I say? It is what it is. We'll see you guys in 2 weeks. Hopefully, we have the long road to get there, but I hope we get a rematch for the NFC title, because that would be pretty epic. But I can't say jack. You guys have an incredible team. It is what it is. We've got Handicap UFC, my guy Lou Betcha in the house as well. Nigel Lee, grateful dude, meet the ball. We're all hanging out here, everybody. I see my familiar faces. Thank you all so much from the bottom of my soul for being here. First fight card of the year, UFC Vegas 101. As always, we're going to break it down for you. If this happens to be your first time stumbling across my stream, my show, this is the Die Hard MMA podcast. We're here every single week on Monday night, breaking down that week's UFC card for you. I'm going to provide you with all the information I can get my fingertips on, and I'm going to give it to you on a silver platter so you can make the very best betting decisions you possibly can for this weekend's UFC card. On top of that, I'm going to let you know what I am betting. Use that information however you please. If you want to fade me and try and go that route, go right ahead. Just don't be a dick about it. If you want to tail me, we're going to swing from the rafters. We're going to have a good time. I am, as of now, sitting negative, coming off the worst year of my betting life in 2024. However, I will let you guys know, as the record stands, since I started the show 6 years ago, we have alternated winning and losing seasons. So if the pattern holds true, then your boy is looking to be positive in 2025, just because that's what we've done since the podcast started. So I am planning on getting my crap together this year. I'm planning on having a good year and making back every red cent that I lost to the bookies last year. We have to go with a 1-0 mentality, just like my Minnesota Vikings. We're going to look at this weekend and we're going to win this weekend, and then on to the next. We're going to try and find better spots, but we are starting off the year even keeled, 0-0, going into the 2025 season. And I think the best part about this show, again, if you're a new viewer, if you're just stumbling across my channel, the thing I try to do on this show, number one, is entertain the crap out of you. I want to give you a fun show. There's a lot of shows out there with a lot of great information, a lot of useful information, very, very smart people talking to you about gambling experience. I'm here to have fun. I'm here to enjoy the best sport on the planet, and I'm here to make sure you enjoy breaking down the best sport on the planet. So even if you're not a gambler, this is a show that you can watch and hopefully find some entertainment value in. Second, what I try to do is make sure I've got a guest on the show that is far smarter than me. The whole point of my show is to give you guys access, easy, cheap access to some of the best gamblers the internet has to offer, right? I have a new guest every single week. And 99.9% of the time, there are people who are better gamblers than me. There are people with deeper pockets than me. There are people with better betting records than me. And I bring them on this show so we can pick their brain and you guys can get some useful information for free. Most of these guys have, subscription platforms and things of that nature. You're going to have to pay to get their information, but they do come on my show and you'll get a free tidbit of their thought process. And that's another way that I can help you guys out. Everything I do is designed to enjoy MMA, be a positive force in a very toxic environment, and then provide every betting tool for you that I possibly can. So do me a favor and get subscribed if you're not already. Do me a favor and hit that like button for me so we can get into this show rightful. And let's go ahead and bring in your first guest of 2025. I mentioned him at the top of the show. He's already hanging out in the chat with you guys. You didn't even know it. Free UFC bet picks on the show to start the year. If you guys are on MMA Twitter, you may have missed him, but if you're on Instagram, you know this man. You know this GOAT. How you doing today, my man?
Really good. Super excited to be here. It was a lonely month. I'm so glad we're back,
Absolutely. This is, I was talking to somebody about it just a couple of days ago that we need these breaks. I mean, I love MMA. Obviously, this is the Die Hard MMA podcast. I'll watch a couple of people in the backyard slugging it out with duct tape on their hands instead of gloves. Like, I'll watch any fight you give me, man. I love this stuff. But when it comes to the content, when it comes to the betting, it's a slog. Like, that's a long year. We got stuff every single weekend, and there's a lot of prep and planning that goes into it. It's not like basketball or hockey where you can just plug and play the analytics and then, it prints out the side with the value on it and stuff. Like, we got to watch these things. We got to dig in. We got to get stats. Like, there's, so-and-so had staff the last time out. You got to remember that because it was 6 months ago. Like, there's a lot that we have to do, and it really can drain on us content creators. So I really needed this one. I needed this break, especially coming off the bad year that I was having. However, about 5 days in, I get itchy. I'm already like, damn, okay, like 5 days is good enough, man. Like, y'all got any MMA back there? So I'm with you, man. I feel like I needed this break. I needed this reset, but I am more than happy to be back. This first card is not the sexiest thing I have ever seen in my life.
The main event,
I do think there's going to be some action on it.
The main event's got a couple of marketable fighters, if you know what I mean.
That is, in fact, sexy. The main event is a sexy one for sure. But man, I think it's going to be fun. Most of the time we talk about it, these grungy, dirty, dumpster divey type of fights, they usually end up being pretty good entertainment value wise. And I think that's what we've got in this spot, is a fight that not a lot of name value, some up and coming potential future contenders, but a lot of fun.
Yeah, no doubt. I actually think it's far better than the average Apex card. Lots of good name value, lots of bangers, lots of really tough cards, tough fights, that is. And you said it was nice to have a break, especially Clint. You do so much hard work. You get the show out early and you actually watch tape. You actually know how to pronounce these guys' names. So I could tell you watch tape. It's a ton of work and you do it all to help people for free every week. And so the break was nice. You're right.
It was, yeah, man, needed, absolutely needed. But hey, that is plenty of preamble, you guys. We're going to go ahead and get into this show for you. You know the drill. We're going to start at the bottom. We're going to take it on up to the top. George Ray Pro, What's going up? Thank you very much, my friend. We got my guy Danny Betts in the chat as well. Cade Garrison, what's going on? Everybody starting to roll in here. Christopher Delaquila, what's going on? See right there, I butchered your name. I do apologize. Like my guy was just giving me props for knowing how to pronounce things, and I'm already ruining that. Joe Free, what's up, buddy? Salt Dirt in the house. Hands Gratzing shredded. We'll get to that on the Friday show. Hey, real quick before we get this thing started, you guys, I've got some stuff in the works. All right. So I haven't had a year since I essentially started the show where I haven't had a sponsor. This will be my first time doing that. And so what I'm going to do is try to build out additional content for you guys. And I know that sounds crazy because we're already talking about how much content I do. I'm going to try my best to build out additional content for you guys, for the diehards specifically. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to be setting up a Patreon and I'm going to be setting up a Discord. Now, two things real quick. I know a lot of you, I can hear your collective sphincters tightening as I say that. First and foremost, I am not selling my picks. I have never sold my picks. That's not me. That's not my gig. I'm not that guy, right? But I will be doing like a low budget Patreon so that you guys can find a way to support me. YouTube, when you do like the donations and stuff, once I'm able to unlock the super chat, they take like 55-60% of that. So I'm not going to see most of that kind of thing. People buy, merch and t-shirts. Sometimes I get asked where people can like tip me, but again, that's through like PayPal and Venmo, and there's weird stuff going on with that. So I'm going to set up a Patreon. And I'm going to do like a $1 subscription where like, if you're just looking to support me and get on the team, it'll be easy access that way for you. And then of course, I'm going to build out some tiers that are, if you want to support more, then I'm going to provide more content. So I'm trying to build out exactly how I'm going to do that. But things like the extra shows, like the Sharp Action Report, maybe like the Friday Undefeated Post Weigh-In Show, like those will become subscriber shows for those of you who are choosing to actually support me for that additional content. The Monday show right here will always be free. I will never charge anybody for my picks or my bets or whatever. I'm not trying to do that or anything like that. And like I said, I'm going to make it very, very affordable. So I'm not trying to gouge you guys, but because I'm not going to have a home channel sponsor, and this is my home channel and it's going to be all on me from here on out, I have to find a way to try to make that difference up. So I'm still working on that. You guys will roll that out in a couple of weeks or something, or as soon as I can figure it out, hopefully sooner than later. But that's the plan, just so you're all aware. And then I will have a Discord so that we can have the best damn chat in the game set up with a Discord where we monitor it, and it's going to be positive, and it's going to be people trying to win betting, and it's going to be people trying to have fun and enjoy the game. We're going to make sure we follow the rules on the show, right? No sexism, racism, no hate speech, no politics. That's going to fall over into the Discord. We're just going to be a bunch of MMA fans having fun over there and trying to make money hanging out with each other. So that's going to be the plan moving forward. For now, let's talk some fights. First fight of the evening, we've got Joe Solecki, and he takes on Nurullo Aliev, the Tajik Eagle. Oh, my Lord. This is a pretty good fight starting off. Now, Joe Solecki coming in here on relatively short notice. You guys know me. I've kind of turned into a little bit of a Joe Solecki hater at this point. I mean, he's 2-2 in his last 4. Grant Dawson got him. Rumor on the street is he's still asleep after Jakar close slammed him all the way back in 2023. This guy's a jiu-jitsu guy who is more than comfortable going to his back. And that's always the big red flag for me, right? Especially in MMA. You don't want to be on your back. You want to be on top. There's a very, very few people who can go to their back and be competitive in today's MMA scene to be able to pull that off. You usually need to be able to get on top of your opponents, or you've got to, threaten in transition, something like that. I mean, Joe he could climb on a back, he could catch an ankle lock or something like that. Totally possible. But we saw what happened when he was facing a real physical force in this weight class, and he was trying to play from his back. It didn't end well. So Nurullo Aliev on the other side of this thing is a big-time prospect, just 24 years young, 9-0 undefeated. He made his UFC debut against Rafael Alves, and Rafael Alves is a guy that I frankly was shocked the UFC let go to Karate Combat. It was so fun. I mean, I know he lost a couple of fights. I know he didn't fight to his potential, but he was explosive. He was fun. He always entertained the crowd. It was clear that he was not going to be a contender. But how many guys do we have on the UFC roster right now that are just there for fun fights every other fight? Look at Kevin Holland. Like that's who this guy could have been. And he's super exciting. And he's doing things over in Karate Combat. Good for him. I'm glad he's making money. But off of Dana White's Contender Series, Nurullo Aliev was completely able to nullify Rafael Alves. And to me, that speaks volumes. That guy is just a physical monster. He's juiced to the gills. He's got all that explosiveness, strength, and power. This guy can take people down. He can get top position very easily. His ground and pound is nasty. This is a big-time prospect, dude. I love Nurullo Aliev. I'm very excited for his future, combined with already being just a tidbit of a Joe Solecki non-believer. I got to pick Nurullo Aliev to go ahead and start the year here. He's a minus 425 favorite. Now, just to make sure you guys are aware, I see a couple people in the chat asking, no, we've still got Bet Openly. So Bet Openly absolutely is still sponsoring the show. When I say there's no sponsor, I mean no host channel. You know, I was on Pub Sports Radio for a long time. Still love those guys, by the way. I was on Home of Fight for a long time, and I was on their channels. That's more what I meant, as I guess the host is more right to say than a sponsor. So we're still with Bet Openly, absolutely, and that's where you can go to bring the price tag down on a fight like this, because the splits are just absolutely disgusting. Now, they've got to get updated over there. They've still got Yanel Ashmos versus Nurullo Aliev listed as the fight. That needs to get, changed and updated. They'll get that fixed up here, I'm sure, in the next day or so. But you're going to get better price tags over at Bet Openly. We do love them, and I will be shouting them out later on in the show. All right, my guy, I have rambled on far long enough about this fight just to say that I think it's favorite smash or pass. Maybe it's a decision. Maybe it's ground and pound. But I don't think that Joe Solecki is going to catch this guy in a choke. And if he doesn't catch him in a choke, I've got a hard time seeing him win.
Yeah, I'll quickly mention, if you live in a state that doesn't have legal betting, you got to be on Bet Openly.
Right.
You got to be getting all your friends on it, making referral bonuses, saving money. It's an absolute no-brainer. So I love Gino. I love Bet Openly. I'll mention, I'm on Aliev too. I actually thought he was going to be like minus 700 because he was minus 500 over Ash Moose, and Ash Moose is a pretty tough, strong dude, right? So it's like, okay, now he's got a 1 week notice, like pretty much as short notice as it gets, unless you're Dan Ige. Jiu-jitsu guy, I thought he'd be minus 700. I was very surprised when he was minus 425.
Yep.
Couple red flags on Aliev. He's historically a decision machine, and his pre-UFC resume looks really good on paper, but it's really not. So like the guy he beat before Contender Series, Kirill Kurikov, he looked good on paper. He's 9-2-1. He's 1-4 in his last 5 fights. Like Aliev's pre-UFC resume was not as good as it looks on paper. And we've been saying before the Rafael Alves fight that he's highly susceptible to guillotines. He almost got guillotined multiple times by Alves. In the 3rd round, Alves got him in a guillotine, rolled into mount with it. All right, so now you talk about Joe Solecki. I don't think he gets enough credit for how strong he is. The dude is getting swole. His back is just huge. I was really heavy on Grant Dawson. Last time out, I was on Twitter. I'm not on Twitter very often, as you mentioned, but I was like, how is Grant Dawson only minus 250? And I had him in a ton of parlays. He closed at like minus 500. In that first round, I was scared as hell. I mean, he had Grant Dawson in a very deep arm-in guillotine for like 4 minutes. And Grant Dawson was bright red. It is very live here that he does get a front choke. And I wouldn't say like all the front chokes are live, because Aliev doesn't get into north-south trouble. Like I don't think a Doris, Bravo, Ninja, or Anaconda is live here. But Aliev is absolutely going to stick his head into Joe Solecki's armpit at least 3 times. And Solecki does have a tendency to slow down. I think he's kind of first-round guillotine or bust here. But I think it's a legit probability that it could happen. I'm on Aliev. I thought like he was going to be a main tier 1 parlay leg for me against Dash Moose. And now he's going to be like a tier 2 parlay leg for me, just because Solecki has got that choke, and he's stronger than people give him credit for. As I mentioned in the Grant Dawson fight, he pushed Grant Dawson against the cage, going for a takedown, gets standing back control. He actually got too high and slipped off, takes the guillotine, and I've got a high opinion of Grant Dawson, and it was close to busting all my parlays that night. So Aliev's the dude. He's had long layoffs, injury concerns. Like there's just a little bit of unknown. So just a brief word of caution for everybody, but I'm on Aliev decision here.
Yeah, I like that, man. And that's a good point to mention just how dangerous Joe Solecki has looked in the grappling realm in recent memory. sub or bust, but that sub is not something that you can overlook. Absolutely. So as you guys know, we do everything here from a betting perspective. I'm picking Aliev, but I don't know how much I'm going to war with him at minus 425. You know what I mean? Like, I'll pick him. Maybe we throw him in one parlay. When I do my entire sweep the board parlay, he'll be in it. But I'm not going balls to the wall on Aliev. You guys know I'm very cautious when it comes to these Dana White's Contender Series fighters. I am very cautious when it comes to laying this kind of chalk on unproven talent as they're just getting their feet wet in the UFC. Every once in a while, you'll get that prospect that comes along and takes the UFC over by storm. It's not every one of them. In fact, a lot of them are going to sputter out and they'll go, 2-4 and then get cut, that kind of thing. I think this kid's legit. We'll find out. We will find out. Let's see.
But if we think about the odds of what we expect a round one submission for Solecki to be, it's got to be at least plus 1,000. If he's going to be, I'm sure by the time the line closes, Aliev is going to be minus 600. Solecki is going to be plus 450. The round one sub, probably plus 1,200. Yep. That means if they fight 13 times, could he get a round one sub just once? I think that's about right. I think that's I think that's a fair price that has a chance.
It's possible. It is there. Absolutely. My guy Joe Free in the chat saying, Clint, we need vet openly in New Jersey. Why are we excluded? And I'll tell you, Joe, I actually talked to Gino about this one a little bit. For those of you guys who don't know, Gino, he's on Twitter. Make sure you're giving him a follow. He's the owner, operator, creator, CEO of Bet Openly. He is the man. He's very open to feedback and he will help people out. That's literally the whole point of Bet Openly, is saving gamblers money. So he will talk to you about this kind of thing. They hate him. So that they're like blocking him in New Jersey. There's like a legal situation going on where he was like dragged through the mud with people over there because they know the threat that Bet Openly poses to the cornered market that they have in the betting operation over there. They refuse to let him in, and they've got him barred basically everywhere. Same reason why he can't operate in Nevada. So there's a very few couple of states where Bet Openly is not available, and I think it's four states where it's not able to get through. But places like California, you guys, I go on vacation to California to see family and stuff like that. They have not legalized sports betting. Bet Openly works. It's legal over there. So, I mean, it's a cheat code. It really is a cheat code. If you're in a place that doesn't allow legalized sports betting, check Bet Openly. We probably are in your area, and we're in all kinds of places outside the United States as well. My guy, Johnny, showing up in the chat. What is going on? Let's see here.
And Clint, it's like easy to get paid out like a regular sports book, right? It's not like Bet Openly where you have to like pay for them to send you a check or some BS.
No. They do have I believe they have like a limit on withdrawals per month. So if you were to run up like a 30K stack or something like that on there, it would take you a little bit of time to get it back out because they have a limit on transactions. But that would be it. It's not like you're going to have to pay them a fee to pull money or something like that. Every single month that clock resets. So it's just like it's a company thing. So you can't be, withdrawing $5 50 times over the course of a month and cost them way more than they're paying you to go ahead and process those transactions. So yeah, you absolutely would have easy access. There's direct deposit. The easiest way to do it, I think, is through crypto. But most places you can link up direct deposit with your bank accounts and stuff like that. So it's pretty clean and easy and seamless. Dylan in the chat asking, how about Joe on the spread on DK? That would be a very interesting question because the spread should be somewhere around the 3.5 mark. Meaning, can he win one round in this fight and then not get finished? If the number's not bad, I would say that's potentially live.
You know what I love the thought process there. I think Solecki's better for like a finish only prop here. Whereas like Chris Curtis, sorry to jump the gun, I think Chris Curtis plus 3.5 is a great look. He's going to win round 3 probably. To me, I don't think Solecki's going to win a round. I think he's sub or bust, just my opinion. But I would look at like the finish only prop. That'd be lovely.
Yeah, no, that's not a bad way to look at it as well. And Cade, don't ever compare Bet Openly to Fliff. That place is absolute ass. Have you seen the numbers on Fliff? My God, it's like a 40, 50 cent spread. It's like minus 180 plus 125 bullshit. They are absolutely ripping people off on Fliff. It's disgusting. Johnny, my man, I appreciate the faith. We're going to do our best to make you proud there. I'm just hoping for a winning year, frankly. I'll take plus 2 units on 2025 after the year that I had, but hoping for that 100-unit mark one of these days. All right, guys, next fight up, we have got Victoria Dudakova. She takes on Fatima Kline. And my guy, Brandon Olivas, he did the Hot Takes show with me just a couple of weeks ago. I hope you guys watched that. I'm going to go ahead and link that here on the show for you guys. Go back and check that out. It was a ton of fun. We just went through our hot takes for 2025, and he talked about Fatima Kline and how hyped he is on this prospect. So it's interesting that she's got a fight right out the gates here for us. She is 24 years old. She's got some of the hairiest arms I've ever seen on a woman. She is full of testosterone. I love this chick. Aggressive. Okay. She is very aggressive. She is very athletic, and the UFC threw her right in the deep end. She fought Jasmine Jasudavicius for her UFC debut, and man, she was even money against Jazz. Now, obviously, that was a mistake, right? Like in hindsight, that was a mistake. Jasmine has a massive physicality advantage over almost everybody she fights, and that was at 125, where Fatima normally fights at 115. So she was at a huge size disadvantage there, and they still were like, yeah, she probably beats Jazz. Like, they believe in this girl so much that up a weight class, they were willing to put an even money price tag on her, which just tells you what the UFC and what the bookies make of this prospect coming in. Now, Victoria Dudakova, 25 years old, also very young, 8-1. My girl Sam Hughes got her in the last fight, which you just love to see. And Sam's got a fight coming up. Let's go, Sam Page. I'm shouting out my girl. I loved that spot, you guys. You remember we talked about it. I don't know that Victoria Dudakova is anybody the UFC is excited about at this stage. You know, she makes her UFC debut. Estela Nunez falls to an injury. You got a little asterisk next to that one. The Jinyu Frey fight, she misses weight. And on top of that, Jinyu Frey sailed that one down the river. I've told you guys more times than I can count about Jinyu Frey and the fact that if she had just even 1 ounce of fight IQ, she'd have a 10 times better record than she does. This girl cannot grapple. Dudakova don't know what she's doing on the mat. She can't defend a takedown. She can't get off her back. And Jinyu Frey took her down. And like every Jinyu Frey fight you've ever watched, she finds the path to victory, and she only does it for 1 round and then never does it ever again. If Jinyu Frey had just come out with her wrestling shoes on, she wins this fight extremely easily. She dominates 1 round, gets a ton of top time. Dudakova has no answer for it whatsoever. And then Jinyu Frey decides to kickbox her for 10 more minutes and lose a decision. Classic. My girl Sam Hughes did enough, took over. The deeper the fight went, got the edge in the cardio, got the edge going in the grappling, and got the win that Jinyu Frey couldn't. Now she's getting a massive step up in competition, athleticism-wise. You guys know I love Sam Hughes. That's always been the problem with Sam, is she's a hard-nosed, hard worker, grinder type of fighter, and she refuses to fuck off, and that's why she is able to do what she does. But the athleticism is not her gift. God did not bless her with the athleticism that some of these other fighters have. He blessed Fatima Kline with that athleticism, you guys. This is like getting a juiced, jacked up version of Sam Hughes in this spot. I love Fatima Kline here, man. I think the UFC is basically selling on Dudakova. She's a pretty face that don't know how to fight. They gave her a couple of shots. She is not doing well with those couple of shots, and now they're throwing her to the wolves. They got to remind everybody who Fatima Kline really could be after that Jasmine Jasudavicius fight. I think Kline finishes her. I think we're looking at a domination and then a round 2, round 3 TKO.
Yeah, Fatima Kline is sick. I mean, she is really good everywhere, an incredible striker. She had some nice reversals, and you mentioned it, up a weight class against one of the strongest flyweights, right? As a strawweight, 115.
I can't ever remember the women's weight classes. Yeah. 115, 125. I don't remember if it's I think it's flyweight.
I think you're probably right.
Strawweight is 115. 125 is flyweight.
Yep. So flyweight against one of the biggest flyweights. You know, Jasmine's really good, and she not only held her own, she like reverse position, took standing back control. She had some good moments against Jasmine, and it was like 1 week's notice after Vivi Araujo fell out. So, you know, I was hoping, you know, because Dudakova has a Russian-sounding name, good record. Kline was 0-1 in the UFC. I was hoping this would be like a pick'em, and it opened up at minus 375. It got as wide as minus 1,000.
Yep.
And, like, I don't think there's a line. I don't think there's a line juicy enough that I would bet Dudakova here. I really think Kline
no interest
is a star. So, yeah, you put it well. You know, it's just I picked Sam Hughes as an underdog against Dudakova. Never had a high opinion of her. She got kind of lucky in her. Who was it that she broke her arm? Estela Nunes. When she slammed her and kind of dislocated her arm. Maria Silva. Not a great wrestler. Like, was able to take her down and beat her and stuff. But I think Kline is a future star. I think she's going to breeze here. I do think you're right that she might be live for a late finish, and she could get it either way. She could take the back and choke her out. She could get like a standing TKO. I'm actually super excited to see Kline fight.
Yeah, man, I'm excited for this one. I'm really excited for this one. And I'm going to be looking for that inside the distance prop, you guys. That's going to be one where minus 900 favorite, coming off of a decision grindy type of loss. Hopefully the books are asleep at the wheel. Give me even money. Just give me even money. That's all I'm looking for. I think it's going to be a round 2, round 3 finish. And like you mentioned, it is dangerous to pick a side here, because whether it's TKO or sub, she can kind of do whatever she wants. And once Dudakova's tired, I think she'll give in. So yeah, man, I think I'll be playing a little bit of inside the distance here on this one.
Her cardio really impressed me last fight. I mean, it was up a weight class, so she didn't have to cut weight, but it was short notice, and she had an incredible round 3. She was piecing up Jasmine and took Jasmine down. And it was like a grueling fight. Some fights are more taxing on the gas tank than others. When you're fighting Jasmine, it's a taxing fight. I mean, there was tons of cage control, tons of ground game, and she still looked incredible in round 3. Like, her cardio is elite.
Absolutely. Shout out my guy Brandon Olivas for the call out. Fatima Kline, big year 2025 coming up. All right, everybody, moving right along. We've got Magomed Gadzhiyasulov, and he takes on Bruno Lopes. It is time to put my my new angle to the test here, man. So here's the thing. All right, I am not a big fan of Gadzhiyasulov. He's 2-0 so far with the organization. He won on Dana White's Contender Series. He won his UFC debut. Granted, it was over Brinson Hibario. I don't think Brinson Hibario is very good. And I think Brinson Hibario is very short for the UFC. I think he's probably going to get his walking papers sooner than later. This guy landed 5 takedowns on Brinson. Brinson actually got 3 on him, which is kind of shocking. Just terrible fight IQ. Hibario actually had a moment in round 2 where he could have kind of turned the tide on this fight and then decided to start engaging in the grappling himself, and then ended up on bottom against a Russian. Shocker, right? So just poor decision-making from Brinson Hibario in that spot. But I am not sold on Magomed Gadzhiyasulov being anything but a wet blanket. So he will absolutely grind his way to decision victories in those types of spots. But I think once he starts facing a higher level of competition, we're going to start to see some cracks in that armor. I just don't know that Bruno Lopes is the guy to do it. Now, this guy is a 2-time Dana White's Contender Series contestant, you guys. That's the angle. That's the look, right? We've talked about it before. No more just blindly fading Dana White's Contender Series, guys, but the 2-time competitors, I'm going to fade the shit out of those guys. If you took a crack on Dana White's Contender Series and you weren't good enough to get the contract the first time and they bring you back around for it, and then Dana White takes pity on your ass and lets you into the UFC, that's the guy I want to fade. Because if you're essentially losing to these semi-regional type of fighters and then you get a second shot at it, I just don't think you're very good. I just don't think you're going to cut it, generally speaking. You're not cut from the same cloth as the guys that Dana White rolls out the red carpet for when they get done on Dana White's Contender Series. So there is an asterisk. The guys who are very purposefully kept back for a second fight, Joe Pyfer, someone who they're building their hype, someone who they're sorry, not Joe Pyfer, Bo Nickel, where it's like, this guy's got no UFC fighting experience, right? So like, they need to give him time in a cage, and that's the only reason he came back rather than being signed right away. We don't count him, okay? He's not part of the test subject here, right? So Bruno Lopes is not a guy I'm excited about. He's heavy on his feet. Decent counter striker. I like his kicks. I'll be honest. I like the way he attacks the legs. I like the way he attacks the body. But one thing I noticed, especially in his second Contender Series fight against Kani, I have no idea how you say that guy's name. Mikel. He was moving backwards a lot. He was moving backwards a whole bunch. Now, eventually, his opponent started to fade. And especially in round 2, you could tell real quick that he had swung for the fences trying to get that round 1 KO Dana White contract. And he had gassed himself out entirely. Lopes had moved backwards ate one or two big ones and then avoided the rest of them. And as soon as his opponent started to turn down, then he came forward and put it on him and got the round 2 finish. Props on him for good strategy, right? Like, I can't knock the technique. I can't knock the strategy. That was a good way to go, good way to get it done. But if you're backing up against a guy like that, a guy like Gadzhiyasulov, I think, will be able to put you back up against the cage as well. We are back in the apex. We're in the small cage. And so I think we are going to be getting Gadzhiyasulov being able to put Bruno Lopes up against the fence. I don't like either of these guys, man. This is one of those ones where bookmakers have to set a line. I don't have to place a bet. Gadzhiyasulov is a minus 225 favorite, plus 185 the comeback on Bruno Lopes at this point in time. And I'm going to say favorite or pass. Like, I'll pick Gadzhiyasulov to go ahead and get the win. But Bruno Lopes did show decent cardio in that last fight. He did show a decent ability to take what his opponent was bringing and then turn the tables on him. I think Gadzhiyasulov is semi-bum himself. So if this is a battle between two bums, don't be shocked if I find a way to live bet Bruno Lopes once Gadzhiyasulov starts to fade out in the second or third round. But I'm fully expecting Gadzhiyasulov to be able to get the takedowns that he needs to wear on this guy and then grind to a boring, sleepy decision victory for us. What do you think?
I'm on Gadsy decision as well. Last time out, he's fighting a glass cannon and Brinson Ribeiro. We cashed the over 1.5 at plus money, and we cashed the fight to go the distance at plus 650, both like official full unit bets. And he is not a good finisher at all. But, you mentioned that Brinson Ribeiro's not real high level. Brinson Ribeiro beat the shit out of Bruno Silva. I
forgot to mention that. Yeah.
Bruno Silva was minus 650 there. Bruno Silva, I agree with like almost everything you said, but I think this fight's going to play out on the feet. Bruno Silva has really good takedown defense against Mikhail Ciziniani. You're exactly right. Bruno had nothing going. He couldn't land anything on the feet, but he was stuffing all the takedowns, and then Mikhail gassed terribly. Bruno, I don't think he has real great striking. When he can get in the pocket, he's got great Muay Thai background. He's a black belt, and it's not like the plum clinch, strikes that he employs. It's just step in knees and kind of like lead elbows, and he's real good in the phone booth with those. But at range, he's got absolutely nothing. I don't think Gadsy's going to have a whole lot of success wrestling here. I think Gadsy's striking is highly underrated. He's very clean, technical, diverse kicks, good jab, good range management. I think he's going to piece up Bruno to a decision here.
Okay. All right. I like it. Man, I will tip the cap. That's one of those ones where we're seeing the fight play out a little bit differently, but we came to the same conclusion. I think Gadsy by decision is probably the way that we're both looking here. I'm probably not betting that, you guys. That's one of those ones where I'm trying to pick my spots a little bit better, especially to start the year. I want to come out hot. I noticed something. I went back. So as you guys know, I track all my stuff and I keep records of everything. Man, I went back and I looked. 2024 and 2022 were my 2 worst years ever. And you know what they both started out with? Bets on Trevin Giles. Both years, first card of the year, I talked myself into a bet on Trevin Giles. So what I'm doing on this card, thank God he's not even fighting on this card finally. I'm looking at this card and I'm going, okay, what's the cursed landmine? What's the guy who I in no way, shape, or form should be putting my money on because I've faded him, I've hated him, I've wanted to go against him, and I find a way to talk myself into betting on him for the first fight of the year. That sets the tone for the entire calendar. So I am not going to be putting my money on Gadzhiyasulov, somebody who I have marked as a fade to start the year. That's where's my little like sage I need to sprinkle over each shoulder here. That's trying to avoid the curse here, man.
If his decision prop is anywhere, plus money, I think it's more likely than 50% to hit. I think his decision prop at plus 120, plus 130 would be a good bet.
I'm with you there.
Mention 2 quick red flags. I thought this line would be way wider, like because of MMA math. One guy beat Brinson, one guy lost to him. One guy is from Bahrain, where the UFC wants to build stars because there's a lot of money there. They like to do shows there. They want fighters to fight there. And I'm a little confused why the line is so thin, to be honest. And the other thing I'll mention about Bruno Silva is he took off 6 years of his prime. He like wasn't motivated anymore. He wasn't like losing. It wasn't like Merab, who lost a couple fights, retired for a while, came back. Bruno was winning fights. He beat RoboCop like years and years and years ago. Took off years and years, like 5 years, just because he didn't feel like training anymore. Then the pandemic hit, and then he's bored, and he's like, I should get back in the gym. I think he's like far behind where he would otherwise be.
Sure.
So I don't know. It's like almost sketchy, like the books know something we don't know, because I really don't see a great path here for Bruno. I think he's kind of knockout or bust.
I think he might be getting a little too much respect for that last fight. The fact that he showed decent cardio, showed a good chin, showed big power. Like, I think he's getting a little too much respect for that when his opponent, like you mentioned, was a bit of a glass cannon. Now, I love me some Georgian Warriors. I bet that guy that night. I felt the UFC had a very clear look to try to get another Georgian fighter with a solid record into the UFC. I didn't expect him to gas himself out swinging for the fences the way he did for the entire first 4 minutes of the fight. And I think he's maybe getting propped up a little bit because of that win. And I think it was more fight IQ and game plan oriented than people are making it out to be. He came in with a good game plan. He got the win. He did what he needed to do. He can hit hard, don't get me wrong. So yeah, I think that might be closing the line here a little bit, but frankly, man, I'm not sold on Gadzhiyasulov anyway, so I can understand why it's a little tighter. But I think that would explain some of it.
You're not the only one. Mikhail was super hyped up. His inside the distance prop was like plus 150. Like people expected Mikhail to run through Bruno.
Yeah.
So you weren't the only one. I was on him too.
I needed another Georgian Warrior, man. I thought we were getting another one coming out the gates. Oh, speaking of which, we got to talk about UFC 311 next week. Georgian Warrior in the main event. That one's, people know my history with Merab, and that's my weight class, baby. I can't wait for that one. Teaser. Show for another day.
We all know you're on Umar. Can't blame you.
I've made my stance clear. I have absolutely, I've shoved all in on my boy Umar. So we'll see what happens. Next fight up, you guys. We have got Ernesta Kareckaite, and she takes on Nicole Cagliari. Nicole Cagliari. Okay, I was close the first time around. Man, why don't you lead us off on this one?
This was the fight I had the most trouble with on the whole card, to be honest.
Really?
I ended up picking Cagliari in part because of odds. I got another underdog later that I would pick if it were a pick 'em. This one, the odds kind of forced my hand. Ernesta has really good volume and pressure, and she fights mean. Like, she swings mean. She's not in there sparring, but she's really looping. But she's decently fast, and she's really tall and long for the division. Her problem has been takedown defense. Like, everybody takes her down, and she's really hittable because she just walks forward, kind of like, Cachoeira. Like, she's very zombie-like, just non-stop, consistent, predictable entries and pressure, zero head movement. She reaches down to catch low kicks so that she can try to counter off them. And she's got solid cardio. I mentioned she has really bad takedown defense, but she does have a knack for like reversing and taking the back in a really smooth motion. But typically, if you could take her down, you're going to beat her very easily. Dione Barbosa, her last fight was beating her, but then Dione just gassed so bad. And, she lost to Dione Barbosa, but in my opinion, I thought Ernesta kind of won that. Ernesta won 14 more.
I was looking back at that and I was like, I feel like that fight probably should have gone the other way.
I agree. Dione only got 2 of 11 takedowns. She got outlanded, but Dione just really, really, really gassed. She beat Carly Judas on Contender Series, but that was a really back and forth fight. I actually think she lost that fight to Carly Judas. So anyway,
it all evens out in the end.
Yeah, it does. Yeah. It all evens out for the bookies. I feel like those are the ones that so many of us just bet wrongly or whatever. I don't think I bet either one of those, but those split decisions,
Yep.
You get Gina Chira, Camijo, and Adelaide Bird in there, and God only knows what's going to happen. But she's fighting like Letitia Block, Kate Batchick, like really not high level fighters who have no striking skills. They're not even great wrestlers, but they have to wrestle, and they out wrestle her. So now we got Cagliari, who is very skilled everywhere, and she's getting more and more strong. She's like shredded, absolutely shredded. And she's just incredible on the ground, really good off her back, good takedowns. And she's got by far the more technical striking and way more pop on her punches here. The problem with Cagliari is her cardio a little bit. So, and she's just vastly undersized here. I mean, this is going to be like one of the biggest size discrepancies you'll see in a fight in a long time. So, I'm like, all right, obviously I think Cagliari is going to get her down early. I think Cagliari's live for a round 1 sub. I picked Cagliari in large part because of the odds, but the longer this fight goes on, I think Cagliari's going to fade and Ernesta's going to start to fight off the takedowns and win on the feet. It's a really tough one, a really binary one, but I'll go with the more dangerous, skilled fighter in Nicole.
Okay. Man, if you guys have forgot about Nicole Cagliari, let me just remind you. Oh my God. I remember when they did the weigh-ins for Dana White's Contender Series and was like, holy crap. Like that's a Thor bicep, man. That's not normal. There is one singular thing, my friend, that I need to ask you. And can you either confirm or deny that Nicole Cagliari is fond of the same sex? Is she a lesbian?
I don't know. Based on her very good makeup skills, I would say no.
Okay. I need to find this out because now, before you guys all freak out, and if you're new to the show, I actually have a point behind this. If you're trying to figure out where I'm going, the number 1 betting angle in women's MMA is you undisputedly put your money on specifically Brazilian lesbians with neck tattoos. Ladies and gentlemen, we got a neck tattoo. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a short, stocky, juiced Brazilian monster here, and all I need to know is whether or not she swings for the same team or not. If she's got a girlfriend, we are all in on Cagliari. All right, I'm half joking. I'm also half not joking, right? Like it for the sake of the bit, I'm totally just having some fun with you guys, but also it's an angle that legitimately works very well. These Brazilian juiced up lesbians, if they've got a neck tattoo, man, they're built out of thicker stuff, right? They are mean. Pain is no object to them whatsoever. And then if they do happen to be a lesbian, usually they've got a little more testosterone flowing through those veins than most of the other women MMA fighters do. And then compile that with the fact that they are Brazilian. They have really good vitamins over there, you guys. They're good at jiu-jitsu. They fight since they're like 3 years old. So, I mean, again, half joking, half not. So I'm going to do some research and figure out what we're looking at here. I think the line is probably a little bit too wide. I think the grappling path is going to be there for Nicole Cagliari. I'm with you. This is definitely one that I would line a little bit closer. I do need to do a little bit more digging. Kareckaite is somebody who I'm not as familiar with as I would like to be, you guys. So I will do a little bit more research on this one, and I'll round this one out later in the week. And of course, I always post my stuff. So if I end up pulling the trigger on a bet or something like that, you'll find that on all my social media platforms. But for now, I'm kind of looking at this as an early dog or pass, man. I'm kind of with you here. I think the underdog is live in this spot.
Yeah, I mean, like the Ernesta takedown defense is a huge concern. She's only 26. You'd expect it to get better. But I agree with you on your read. I mean, my GOAT is not Demetrius or George or John Jones. My GOAT is Amanda Nunes. It's not like the women's GOAT. I think the best fighter of all time is Amanda Nunes, and she fits her criteria. So,
oh damn, she is not, in fact, a lesbian. At least, you
see that curl, you see that hair.
Damn.
Like, yeah, I was pretty sure she wasn't.
Yeah, I mean, you never know these days, though. You can't put anybody in a box these days. But yeah, that's unfortunately, we're gonna miss that checkbox there on the last leg there of the angle, but it's okay. We still might be able to get to a bet with her just because the toughness associated with the neck tattoo there. I'm seeing the It Factor MMA saying insane take. That's what I do. All right, guys.
You might be talking about my Amanda Nunes GOAT take.
You know what? That's fair, actually. It Factor, please clarify. Which one is the insane take? The lesbian with the net tattoo or the Amanda Nunez?
You got to narrow this down, man. We're making lots of insane takes here.
We're just saying stuff, man.
I'm all flustered after that beach pick. Like, I'm going to be stuttering the rest of the show.
I know, right? It's a good thing the wife isn't home yet today. All right. Next fight up, you guys. We got pressure Preston Parsons, and he's taking on Jacobe Smith. What is this fight card, man? This is just absolutely Contender Series light. All these guys are Dana White's Contender Series former fighters or Dana White's Contender Series alums, newcomers, debuts. That's all this card is. Jacobe Smith, 9-0 undefeated fighter trading out of Fortis MMA. He did a little bit of a stint over at AKA for a bit, training with DC, a guy who had very, very nice things to say about him. This guy is a freak. He's a physical freak. You should see his back. Like, my God, when he gets in there, he is, I don't want to say Yoel Romero-esque because he's not quite that big, but I mean, damn, dude, like he's got so much muscle on his frame and everything he does is explosive. The timing, the wrestling takedowns. He's one of those guys that if he gets in on even like a single leg, you're going for a ride. Like you'll end up 6 feet in the air and he will slam you and then be in a control position from that spot. On top of that, he slices to your back like a knife through butter. Like this guy is so quick, the way he's able to get a hook in transition, get on top of you, make sure you're carrying his weight. He's dangerous. This is a prospect that I like coming out of Dana White's Contender Series. Now, Preston Parsons, 29 years old, is a guy that I've actually been pretty high on for the most part. Now, he's had a bit of a rough run in the UFC to start, 2-3 in his 5 fights here in the UFC, and one of those split decision loss to Trevin Giles, which that's just that's a bit of the kiss of death, man. Like you shouldn't be losing to Trevin Giles. To be fair, I think that was maybe a bad decision. Like he probably should have got the win in that fight, but if it's that close, that right there is a little bit of a red flag. Jacobe Smith is going to have a 1-inch reach advantage here in this spot. Preston Parsons is also a relatively high-paced grappler. He averages 3.53 takedowns per 15-minute fight. He lands with a 36% accuracy. He's got 71% takedown defense himself, and all of those things together are not bad whatsoever. This guy put a 7 spot up on Matt Simmelsberger. I mean, I know Matt is not the standard for takedown defense, but being able to keep that kind of a pace and be able to get a UFC veteran like him down on the ground 7 times. He also, in his win against Elder, he landed 4 takedowns in that spot. So if he's getting multi takedowns on you, he's going to win the fight. It's just a pace thing. I don't think he can put that kind of a pace on Jacobe Smith, man. And I really think that's all it comes down to. This is kind of like a your best versus my best checkmate type situation. You know, you're a power puncher, I'm a power puncher. I just happen to be Francis Ngannou. Like, I don't think he's going to be able to out wrestle Jacobe Smith.
I'd agree. And I think Parsons has to wrestle to win. He has got some power. You know, he hurt Giles pretty bad in that fight. Kind of clipped him behind the ear with 2 minutes left in round 1. Giles was hurt really bad. He was like up against the cage, like just waiting to get KO'd. But Preston took him down. Uncle Weezy, 2 sweeps last year for your Uncle Weezy. 2 sweeps last year. Stud. Absolute stud. Love him. He takes down an incredibly hurt Giles, takes them out. Giles ends up reversing him. All right, he was able to take down Matthew Simmelsberger, like you said, who everyone can take down. He was able to take down Evan Elder. Evan Elder was on short notice and up a weight class. He gets knocked out in round 1 by D-Rod. Not very good.
That's a bad look.
I know everyone's super hyped on Jacobe, and I agree. He's a monster. He trains with my favorite gym, and in my opinion, the best coach in MMA, Saif Saud. But I'll give you a couple of red flags that some folks might not know about, because everyone knows he's got just vicious power, great wrestling, huge slams, great ground and pound. If you only watched his Contender Series fight and look at him on Tapology, you might think he's the GOAT. He has, and I've heard some guys say he has good cardio. He has atrocious cardio. If you watch the Austin Jones fight and the Levon Lewis fight, not only were they both able to get up multiple times, he was gassed bad 6 minutes in, beginning of round 2. If you watch the Brian Grinnell fight, Brian Grinnell has the worst striking defense I've ever seen. And so he got knocked out in 61 seconds as he's like looking away, trying to skirt away against the cage. He's like literally looking away. And, Jacobe lands a left hook right on the chin. Grinnell stuffed all of his takedowns. Jacobe is just so strong, so muscular, and his takedowns are typically like strength-based takedowns, lots of slams, good double leg slams, good body lock takedowns, but he gasses big time. He's got good wrestling, but as I mentioned, not the best top control. I like this guy. He's young. He's going to continue to improve, but it's partly because of his physique and partly because of his takedown style. Like, it's not like he can just improve his conditioning by running more. Like, he needs to adjust his fighting style to improve his conditioning. I'm on Jacobe here. I think minus 350 is about the right line, but I tell you, Parsons might take over as this fight goes on if he doesn't get KO'd in round 1.
I like it. Like I said, man, I've always been a little high on the Parsons side of things. I've always liked his ability to continue digging deep and pushing, and that's a very, very valid point, and I love your red flag report on all these fights. I'm going to have to do a little bit of more digging on Smith. I did not see one of those fights that you're talking about, so I'm going to have to go back and look up some of that old tape. That'll be very interesting. Now, one comment in the chat. Let me circle back here. I want to give credit where it's due. Somebody did say that Parsons is a little bit low-key chinny, and that is something that I think we need to make sure that we state, because even if he isn't able to get the wrestling going, he could get cracked. And I love Parsons, but if he can't recover from a big shot from a monster like this kid, it could be another early round 1 finish, and then the cardio don't matter. So I think he's live, and I think it's a live bet situation. Get out of round 1, see what Smith looks like in the corner, see what the beginning of round 2 looks like, maybe jump in at that point. I'm going to pick Smith to win for the sake of the show, but I will be watching very, very closely live. This is one of those fights where I think there may be a window to enter in here on the dog, but it's not a window I want to take pre-flop. Last year, I want to say there were 2 or 3 big spots where I kind of told everybody that I was like, I like the underdog, but I need to see that they can survive round 1 first. And 2 out of 3 of them died on the first punch. So it's like, yeah, you might hit one of those 3, but if you're not getting the right price, it doesn't matter if you go 2 and 3 on, plus 115s. That's not enough, right? That's not going to cover you. So I would, in some circumstances, rather wait to see it with my own 2 eyes, unless it's somebody I'm very comfortable with diving in pre-flop. I'm not very comfortable diving in pre-flop on this one, but I do think it's a very, very good live bet opportunity. If you see what you need to see, Parsons could be a hidden gem this week.
I'd say if you're going to bet Smith, you better do it fast. I imagine money's going to pour in on him.
You'd think so.
But and he can knock out anybody. You know, he's got a bright future if he can straighten out the cardio.
Yep, absolutely. All right, guys, moving right along. We have got Thiago Moisés, and he's taking on Trey Ogden. Oh boy, I love this fight, man. This is a hardcore fight, right? This is for people just like you and me, because most people are not going to really remember Trey Ogden at all. A couple people might know Thiago Moisés, but this is one that, people like you and I are foaming at the mouth for, because this is a dang good matchup, man. Thiago Moisés somehow is not even 30 years old. Did he lie on his UFC birth certificate, or did he really get here at like 22 years old? Because he's been around forever, and he's not even 30 yet. That's absolutely insane. He's training out of American Top Team. The guy is a phenomenal grappler. He's a really solid boxer, but really we've seen at this point that he's proven he is not going to be a contender, right? That's kind of all it comes down to. He is he's the upper middle tier, right? Like if you're the guy who just got the promotion and you're not out of the middle class yet, like that's Thiago Moisés. He got a good solid raise, but he's definitely not able to buy a yacht just yet. Trey Ogden, on the other hand, this guy is a grinder. He's my male version of Sam Hughes. He's not a guy who's all that athletic. He's not an insane freak athlete, but he will get his hands dirty and he will get in there and do whatever it takes to beat you. He will grind. He will find that one chink in the armor where he is 1% better than you, and he will abuse that spot until he gets the win. Sometimes his fights can be a little too close for comfort, but I feel like that's what makes him a good underdog that you can put your money on from time to time. He's a good, solid wrestler. He's got decent submission defense. Now, 3 of his losses are by sub, but the majority of his losses really come by decision. The one that really looks bad in hindsight is the Jordan Leavitt split decision. That was a close fight back in 2022. He's really turned up since then. I feel like he's been in very good form in his last couple of fights. And the Nicholas Motta fight, I mean, I know Motta's like bottom of the barrel, but he completely dominated that fight. And I know it was a weird no contest situation where they stopped it because, you know, Motta didn't actually tap and, you know, all this stuff. But Trey Ogden was well on his way to either a finish or a dominant decision victory in that spot. The one that kind of concerns me was the Ignacio Bahamondes fight, because I had a Bahamondes inside the distance ticket that night. And Ogden is smart enough to not take damage. And I, you know, that it sounds stupid, right? Coming from my comfy chair here, breaking down MMA fights, saying this guy should go in there and get pieced up and knocked out. I appreciate the IQ, because he had one round with Ignacio Bahamondes and went, this guy's going to take my head off. And he just went, nope. he made sure to backpedal. He stayed defensive. He didn't take any unnecessary damage. He never put himself in a spot where he was going to win that fight because he knew he was outgunned, and he was just fine with not taking the brain damage and worked his way to a decision in that spot. So yeah, he took a giant fat L. We saw the cap on his ceiling, but he did exactly what he needed to do to get out of there with as little damage as possible. And I think that's a credit to the brains this guy has coming into a UFC fight. So, man, this is a spot where I feel like Thiago Moisés, higher pedigree, higher ceiling, better gym. Trey Ogden really is like running his own shift these days, right? He's the head coach over at Marathon MMA. So he's doing the dang thing himself. He's coaching people, running the gym, but he's a master tactician with high fight IQ, with good ability to wrestle. I think he's going to make this fight very close and very competitive. I don't think Thiago Moisés is going to be able to finish Trey Ogden. Moisés has decent boxing, but not a ton of power. His real threat is his ability to submit people. And I think Trey Ogden's a good enough wrestler to keep this guy off of him. So I'm kind of thinking it's a Moisés decision with a chance of split, with a chance of Trey Ogden upset. Like, I think this is a very close fight, man. I'll be looking at an over 2.5 if they can give me a decent number on it.
I struggled with this one a lot, and for that reason, I had to go with the dog. You know, in part because of odds. I've been cashing on Trey Ogden nonstop. You know, I was pretty heavy on him against Kurt Holobaugh, and like everybody was on Kurt Holobaugh, and Ogden made it look very, very easy there. We know Moisés has good jiu-jitsu, but he's not like tapping anybody off his back.
No.
The Dave Castillo fight, I actually don't have in my notes if that was an armbar from guard or like an armbar from mount. So I couldn't tell you. He did land a triangle choke in 2014, but he's not like tapping people off his back. Like he's good at taking the back, getting a rear naked choke. He's an offensive submission guy. I think if Ogden gets him down, he's going to be safe on top. I'll mention, you mentioned Motta not being real high level. Motta's been, performing really well. And it wasn't just the wrestling where Ogden was smoking him. Ogden was beating him on the feet. Ogden was beating him to the jab. He was piecing him up on the feet. I think the kind of like standard read here is Moisés is better on the feet and Ogden needs to take him down. I think the striking is going to be closer than a lot of people imagine it here.
I agree.
I'm not here to like say that Ogden's gonna outstrike him necessarily. I just think it's close enough that with the wrestling upside and the strength, I mean, Ogden's just going to look huge here. I think money's going to pour in on him after weigh-ins when he's just like towering over Moisés. And they're like, oh shit, this guy's definitely going to be able to wrestle here. So I had to go Ogden as the dog here. He is running Marathon MMA, which is like the phoenix that rose from the ashes of Glory MMA.
Yeah, basically.
And, Glory MMA is known for a number of things, but what it was known for to me was terrible cardio. I think perhaps the worst cardio in UFC history is Gina Mazzani, which is a little surprising because she was getting around. You would think her cardio would be pretty damn good, I think. But, you know, like you look at David Onama, he had terrible cardio, much better now. Like, I don't know what these guys were doing back then, but like it wasn't conditioning. He's got good conditioning, and I think Ogden's definitely a live dog here. I had to pick him officially.
Okay. All right. Hey, man, I like it. Now, real quick, chat, I got to ask you guys something. Last year, I brought Shame to my house, and we tried to honor our boy Link with the Link Memorial Dog of the Week. And every single week, we had a dog. I ended the year negative massively. I ended the year down on my Link Memorial Dog of the Week picks, like 5-ish units. So, like, way better than my overall record, frankly. But I completely swung miss and failed on that. Do we like the dog of the week? And should I continue the Link Memorial Dog of the Week pick for each card in 2025? Let me know, chat. Let me have it, because I need to know what you guys want. If you're watching this post live, obviously, if you're on any of the social media platforms, leave a comment, jump in the comment section of the show. Afterwards, let me know what you guys think, because it's something that I'm willing to continue doing. If it's a thing that you guys want me to continue doing, is picking out my favorite dog on the card like that. But if it's not something that you guys are interested in, then we'll hang it up. We did it for a year. We tried. We'll let it go. So we'll see.
Nobody cares. You do it for Link.
And that's fair. That's fair. Okay, I'm singing "Long Live Link." Keep it going. Keep it. Continue the dog of the week. All right. We're doing it. So that'll be it right there then, you guys. First dog of the week for 2025 is going to be Trey Ogden. I'm totally with you, man. I've been on the Trey Ogden money train ever since that fight where he took the L to Ignacio Bahamondes. I had an ungodly amount of money on him on the Nicholas Mota fight, where I was very upset with the way that fight ended. But I've basically been betting on him every time I can get plus money on him since. I know, and somebody in the chat, thank you for pointing that out, did go ahead and let us know that it looks like Thiago Moisés has moved camps over to the Fighting Nerds. He's been there for, I guess, 2 weeks is the report. I need to do some legwork and verify whether or not that's accurate information. But thank you if that is true. That is good to know. I don't know that 2 weeks is enough for them to really do anything with Thiago Moisés. He's extremely young. That is the hottest camp in the game right now. He's Brazilian. He'll fit right in over there. So that definitely could be something where moving forward, we need to sit up and pay attention that Thiago Moisés may be cross-training with some of the best fighters in the world, and we could rapidly see improvements in his ability, his game, and everything. But 2 weeks ain't enough for me. If there was ever a spot to bet against Thiago Moisés before he got the ball rolling, this would be it. So I think I'm with you, man. Trey Ogden, anytime we're getting plus money, I like his ability to box. I like the size advantage. I think he can out wrestle a guy like Moisés. And as long as he doesn't get his arm caught in an arm bar or some shit from his back, I think he should be able to win this fight. Ogden by decision. Let's do it.
Real quick thing, one red flag for each of these guys. Moisés doesn't have any great wins in the UFC. His best win is probably Alexander Hernandez. You might say his best win is Bobby Green. He did not deserve to win that Bobby Green fight. Bobby Green made 2 atrocious decisions going for 2 Kimuras, which landed him on bottom. Like, trying to Kimura a Brazilian guy who's a black belt in jiu-jitsu is just not a great decision. I don't think Moisés has any great wins. On the Ogden side, you could say he's got questionable fight IQ, choosing to strike with Ignacio Bahamondes all fight. Didn't even try.
He had much other choice, though.
He didn't even try taking him down, as I recall. I just, that's still stuck with me. That, like, I don't care. You go 0 for 10. If I'm fighting Ignacio Bahamondes, I'm going 0 for 30 on takedowns until he KOs me.
See with that right there, I think he just didn't want to be in range. He said he ate a knee and an elbow and was like, nope, I'm staying out here. So I mean, you got to put a little asterisk next to it. I get it. He should have been shooting for takedowns, but I don't think he wanted to take the damage associated with those takedowns. And that led to it. Also, you guys, looking back at the losses, those sub losses came before he was really taking his, game seriously, obviously. He got submitted by Nick Brown in LFA. And then he actually got submitted by Thomas Gifford, not once, but twice. They ran that fight back and he choked him out both times. So even though he's got 3 submission losses, it's really only 2 guys that have submitted him. And that's something that appears to be much, much better in his last couple of fights. So yeah, maybe Thiago Moisés can find his way to his back and we see that old little chink in the armor kind of rear its ugly head here and he loses via submission to a guy like Thiago Moisés. But I'm willing to roll the dice with the old dog here one more time.
I like Dixon's read. I do think this probably goes to decision. Could be very close and split.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's pretty classic for Ogden is to make it a close fight. So fight ends by split, maybe a half decent way to go. And like I said at the top, man, I like the over. I feel like if we can get like a 2.5 at a half decent price, that could even be a parlay piece. Like I think the over in this fight is really what makes the most sense to me.
Love it.
All right, let's roll. Next fight up, you have got Marco Tulio, and he is taking on Ihor Potarius, the worst duelist on planet Earth. Oh, man, what a dumpster fire on this one. You know what? I'm sorry. I've been very, very ball hoggy over here. Do you want to talk to me about this fight? Why don't you kick us off on this one, man?
Sure. You know, Ihor, we know his challenges. He's not real great anywhere. Like he went 0 for 10 in his first 10 takedown attempts, but then we cashed him to land a takedown against César Almeida, who we'll talk more about at plus 275 just to win, just to land one. He ended up landing 3. Tells you a lot about César Almeida. He has a southpaw style and his jab has nothing on it. It's very pawing. He's like just lacing it out there, but the 2 behind it, the straight left behind it does have some significant pop. He's very hittable, some durability concerns, some cardio concerns. And, you know, again, he's just not super great everywhere, but I do think he's better down at this weight class. I think it's the right weight class for him. It's tough to get a great read on him because, like, yeah, you get outstruck by César Almeida. It's a weird fight. He got eye poked so many times. You get smoked by Michel Pereira. Makes sense. You beat Roger Brychek, not really a high-level guy. It's hard to – it's like there's such a vast cavern between the skill level of his losses versus the skill level of his wins that there's a big canyon there. It's tough to know exactly where he's at. Marco Tulio, I try to do my written breakdowns and pick these fights before looking at the odds, and I thought Tulio would probably be like minus 400, and I think it's about right. He's got diverse kicks. He's a really good striker. He's got power in his hands. He has good balance, which it's kind of hard to describe, but like it's actually interesting because I don't often think about the balance of a fighter, but Ihor's terrible balance jumps out at me and Tulio's great balance jumps out at me. Tulio's able to pivot and get out of the pocket and get off and angle out really well. He's not the best.
That's that shoot the box background right there.
Oh, I guess you're right. Yeah. He's, I think Tulio's got the far better striking defense. He can get a little flat-footed when he gets tired, but when he's fresh, he's just like, he's got really good footwork, decent jiu-jitsu, not great wrestling, not great top control, decent takedown defense. I think this fight plays out on the feet and they both got some power. So it could, it's a little sketchy betting a minus 500 where you're betting 2 decently powerful striking guys. I do think Tulio is pretty safe here. He's got good low kicks. He showed great low kicks and great kicks overall in his second Contender Series fight. I guess we got a few, 2-time Contender Series fighters here, but he was just unable to wrestle. I don't think he's very well rounded. I think he's a tiny bit overrated, but I expect it to play out on the feet. And I think he's got better footwork, better technique, better power, a little bit better striking defense. I'm on Tulio.
Okay. I largely agree with the breakdown. This is tough for me. This is a fight I need to stay clear away from a betting perspective, because one of the biggest ways I've gotten in trouble is trying to fade shit with shit. And this is a spot to me where this is a lot of that. I know Tulio's got a nice shiny record, but he is a 2-time Dana White's Contender Series competitor. He is a guy that came on Dana White's Contender Series and got a decision, and UFC said, we ain't interested, kid. Brought him back around. Yes, he got a finish in his next fight, but it was over a 6-2 guy. I mean, he's not even fighting good, solid competition. The guy he finished between those was 6-4. So, I mean, he's just not really fighting a tough level of competition. We had a question in the chat from my guy Glenbot. How do we feel about his cardio? I mean, it's decent. He's got 3 wins by decision. The only times he's been to decision, he has won those fights. And then he's got multiple round 2, round 3 style finishes. So it looks like he's got what he needs at those later rounds. But again, I'm worried about the competition level for Mauricio Tulio. Now, I love Shoot the Box. I'm a big fan of Shoot the Box. I love what they do. They've got really great guys coming out of that gym, good coaching staff, Charles Oliveira. So I think Marcos Tulio is obviously the guy the UFC is wanting to win in this spot. Ihor is 1-4 in his last 5. I also agree with you that Ihor belongs down at this weight class. I think 185 is a much, much better suit for him. He just didn't have the power to match with those monsters up at 205. He was too skinny. I mean, his speed was the whole situation for him at 205. He had that advantage over most people, but it didn't really help because if he got caught once, that was it. It was over. It was basically the floor is lava for him in every single fight. Now, since he's dropped down to 185 pounds, he is 1-2 in his last 3 fights. And the 2 guys that he lost to, Michel Pereira, okay, and then César Almeida, who's a world-class kickboxer. I don't know that Ihor at 185 is that bad, man. He's not showing the chinniness, that he had up at 185, and Michel Pereira is basically a 205er anyway. So getting cracked and choked by him is not something I'm too worried about. Going the full 15 with César Almeida, that has to kind of count for something. That guy's a world-class kickboxer, and he does know how to mix in his takedowns. I'm fully expecting Mauricio Tulio to win this fight, man. I really am, but I don't like it. This is not a fight that I'm going to be betting on. Mauricio Tulio is a UFC debutant, 2 times Dana White's Contender Series competitor at -500. Yeah, no, thank you. Not for me.
I wrote it in my write-up, and I see some folks talking about it in the chat. These aren't the type of props I typically play. I like to play like plus 2,000 props or like plus 150 props. I think Tulio decision is probably going to be like plus 500. We've seen both of these guys employ lots of cage control. And I wrote in my write-up that this seems like a fight where the fight to not go the distance is probably going to be like -300, and that's unplayable. And I never parlay up those type of props because it's the most painful, torturous bet to lose where you need a finish and then it's some boring fight. I like parlaying overs because if you lose, at least you got to see a knockout or something. But I think these guys could employ some cage control back and forth. I could see multiple minutes where they're just spinning back and forth. So I like the chat talking about some overs here.
Yeah, I don't hate it. I don't hate it.
Trying to get frisky. I'm not going to be betting it, but I think Tulio decision plus 500 could be a more than 1 in 5 chance to hit.
Just give me a decent 1.5. I mean, the way we've seen Ihor fighting at 185 and the way Tulio takes a little bit of time to get warmed up and it's a new level at the UFC, just give me a 1.5, man. Price that thing close to even money for me. Maybe even give me a little bit of a plus. I'll take a stab on a 1.5 here. I don't mind that one bit. All right, guys. Real quick, time to go ahead and shout out these sponsors. This episode of the Die Hard MMA podcast is brought to you by Bet Openly, the #1 money saver for gamblers everywhere, you guys. Peer-to-peer betting, which means it's a real human being on the other side of the window from you. You put a bet in, another real person looks to book the opposite of your action, and because of that, we get the true numbers on everything. Instead of laying -110 and letting a bookie hold the juice for free, both sides of the bet get +100. The winner of the bet pays the 1% transaction fee for it. Everybody saves money over time, and they have saved over $9 million for gamblers everywhere. On top of that, this is legal sports betting, and you can access it in all but 4 of these United States of America and most every other country around the world. So in most states, like we mentioned earlier in the show, like California, where legalized sports betting has not been passed yet, a site like Bet Openly legally has access and works. You guys can get on this platform. As an example of just what we were talking about there, Thiago Moisés is -170 on Bet Openly. You can get the same matching +170 on his opponent Trey Ogden in this spot. No more of these disgusting -185 and +140 type of spread splits so the bookie can make money no matter what side anybody is on. This is fair. This is for the gamblers. You will save money long term using this platform, and that's what we're here for. Go ahead and get in here. And on top of that, you guys, I need you all to get signed up right here, right now, because it's the first event of 2025, I will be doing a giveaway on Bet Openly. We can do contests on here, you guys. What we can do is totals or sides, depending on how many competitive numbers we get. Usually it ends up being totals, but I'm going to do a Bet Openly giveaway. So if you're on the fence about whether or not you want to try this platform out, come compete in my free contest on Saturday for UFC Vegas 101. There is no sign up. I will set it up in a couple of days, and there will be a code that you can access, so there's no buy-in, and then we're going to put $50 up on top. Whoever wins takes it down. So free giveaway for anybody. Just get signed up on Bet Openly, give it a try, and it will cost you nothing to come compete for free. All right. Next up, we got Spectation Sports. Dana White's Contender Series is going to be ramping up sooner than later, and they've got all kinds of other smaller regional shows all around the world that are going on, all around the United States, I guess I should say. Cage Titans 69 is coming up, baby. Nice. That's going to be on January 25th. And then they've got Legends of Combat 1, brand new show coming to you. The only place you can find those is here on Spectation Sports. Promo code Clint will get you 20% off of your subscription when you sign up. So make sure you get on here, get all the MMA action you can handle, get signed up. It's an awesome platform, and they're getting new shows every single month, every single year. So this place is just going to grow and get bigger. You're going to have a nice ability to research, especially fighters that are coming on Dana White's Contender Series. When you can't find them on Fight Pass, they'll be here. Finally, I want to shout out our guys over at Fight Numbers. There's a link in the description of this video. My guy John Kelly runs a tight ship over there. This is wonderful for you DFS players out there. They have lots of models. They have tools for generating outcomes. They have, what is it? When people have ownership projections for DFS, so you can find and snipe the person who's got the limited ownership. They have this odds board, so you can find the best odds on the market for any bet that you're looking to make. I don't see that they have Bet Openly on here. It wouldn't be fair because it would be the best odds on Bet Openly anytime anyway. But go ahead and shout out my guy, John Kelly. Get signed up for Fight Numbers if you're a DFS player. It's a tool you need, and use the link in the description below. Back to the fights. I am joined by my guy, Free UFC Bet Picks, an absolute legend in the game, a man who tracks all the cappers out there, gives wonderful betting advice, and does some work himself as far as podcasting, shows, breakdowns. An excellent follow, especially on Instagram. You know how to work that machine, dude. I know that's your forte, that's your game. I'm trying to learn from you on a daily basis because my Instagram game is weak. So make sure you guys give him a follow. He does have a Twitter, so if you're on X, whatever, if you're on Twitter, give him a follow over there as well. And just a fun dude. So make sure you're supporting our guest today as well. Next fight up, we have got Jose Johnson, and he's taking on Felipe Bunes. Really, really interesting fight here, man. Really interesting fight. Jose Johnson is a guy that I've had a little bit of an up and down relationship with. He's just 29 years old, and I kind of feel like we've never really seen what he's fully capable of. He's got 2 losses in the UFC so far, and I don't feel like it tells really the full story, right? He won on Dana White's Contender Series and looked okay, got thrown into the deep end against the Mont Blackshear. They gave him a softball with Chandon Hellinger, and then they gave him my guy, Asu Almabayev. Now, I had a lot of people giving me flack for the Asu Almabayev pick. I mean, I know he was a massive favorite in that spot. I feel like Jose Johnson was somebody a lot of people were making an argument to bet on in that spot because the line was just way too wide while my boy Asu Almabayev is headed for the top 8 of this weight class. So people are going to learn real quick about my boy Asu. So Jose Johnson is a guy who's, it seems like he should be a long, lanky striker, but instead he's actually like a really good grappler. It's almost baffling to me sometimes how it seems like I would want him to be throwing Muay Thai knees out there, but instead he's trying to choke people. Finishing Chad and Hellinger in the 3rd round, frankly, is a little bit of a feather in your cap. I know that's been the way to beat Chad, is he's got that submission defense issue. But frankly, guys, look back at Chad and Hellinger's record. He has not been submitted by anybody since 2016. So yes, that was always his weakness, but nobody else in the UFC has been able to pull it off. Chad is tougher than a $2 steak. That dude's a tough motherfucker. And Jose Johnson was able to out-grapple him, work him, and then get on top of him and tap him out, something nobody's been able to do to this point. I actually think Jose Johnson is sneaky, sneaky good when it comes to his grappling. Now, Felipe Bunes, 13-7, 35 years old, a little old when it comes to being a contender getting over here to the UFC. He didn't take the route from Dana White's Contender Series. He jumped straight in from LFA and immediately got TKO'd by Josh Van. Welcome to the big show, kid. He's got one of the, the hat angle. A lot of people like the hats of culture, and that's an angle to bet on people. Felipe Bunes does rock the hat, but his just isn't as powerful, I guess. I don't know. I for some reason, it's not working for me. I don't have a very clear read on Felipe Bunes. I will confess he's a guy that I need to do a little bit more work on. But overall, Josh Van, you guys, as much as I'm high on Josh Van, he hasn't been finishing anybody. I mean, I really thought he was going to cook Cody Durden. Now, I know Cody Durden is tough as a $2 steak as well. He's a guy that just refuses to go out there and die. But Josh Van, just over 15 minutes, beats people to a pulp. He beats their will to fight out of them, and that's how he finishes them. It's lots of body work, body head. You never know where that next shot's going to come from, but he hasn't finished anybody. He didn't finish Kevin Boras. He didn't finish Edgar Chairez, who's got terrible gas. He didn't finish Cody Durden, even though he was walking zombie at the end of that fight. And in fact, Charles Johnson flipped the script on Josh Van and finished him in the third round instead. Who did he finish? Felipe Bunes. I actually think this is a Jose Johnson fight. I feel like Felipe Bunes is maybe the line's a little bit too wide. I'll confess, maybe the line is a little too wide, but I kind of feel like this is a spot where Johnson can really kind of remind people what he's capable of. And I just don't know that Felipe Bunes is a guy that I want to get in the boat with for a long UFC run.
This is a tough one because Bunes is a good wrestler, and that's always been Jose's downfall. This is a really tough one. I ended up landing on Jose because he's going to be bigger. He's got better striking. But I'll tell you, Bunes' striking isn't terrible either. He's always on the back foot, but he's got really good counters and overhand rights. He was countering and landing overhands on Josh Van. I'm really confident that Bunes won round one. He was able to take Josh Van down a couple times, and Van has good takedown defense. And then
better get up game.
yeah, very good get ups. And Bunes was doing well in round one against Van. He just totally gassed. He's a little older and undersized here, and Jose's improving immensely on the ground game. He's got really good jiu-jitsu and always did. Even in the Chad and Helliger fight, like Jose was looking good, then he gassed. Jose was relying on like explosive get-ups, like no technique on his get-ups, just really exploding out, kind of like Derek Lewis-esque. And then he ended up getting the choke with like 11 seconds left in the fight. But Jose looked like, you look at that on paper, you're like, ooh, Jose had great cardio, No, Jose had like absolutely no energy. It was kind of a lucky submission that he got there. Jack Cartwright on Contender Series was taking him down like butter, but Jose ended up showing like Jack just wasn't landing anything. And when Jose would reverse him, Jose does a really good job of landing ground and pound when he has his chances. He scores on the ground. So, like there's a lot of similar fights that they've had. Bunes, I think, is going to be on the back foot, backing away, trying to land counters, trying to wrestle, getting on top, doing absolutely no damage. Jose is going to reverse him, land damage when he gets on top, piece him up on the feet. They both have cardio concerns, but I'll take the younger, longer man. But this was the one I really, really struggled with. But I promise you, if you watch that round one versus Josh Van, and Slick mentioned it, he was on short notice there. It does show some promise for Bunes. Really challenging fight here for me. Yeah. But I picked Jose.
Okay. Well, I'm with you on Jose. He's a minus 180 favorite at this point. That's a little pricey. I'm curious, man. Do you think the chalk is just going to continue to roll in 2025? Because we had a legendary chalk year, if you recall, in 2022. And 2023 was dog city. I'm curious how long it takes for the pendulum to swing back on this one.
Yeah, as the market gets sharper, I do expect underdogs to win less and less, right? Just because more knowledgeable people are betting, so the favorite is the rightful favorite more often. Also, back in the day, like, if we talk about like 2020, 2021, there was just so many short notice fights and late matchups and stuff. Yeah. That kind of favored the dogs in many cases. I think the chalk's going to keep rolling.
Okay. Well,
this card, might not be a great like beacon of the future though, because there's just so many tough ones here.
Yeah.
So I think we shouldn't make any like assumptions based on this card.
For sure. For sure.
There's some tough ones.
I feel like, especially with what you're talking about, I feel like the market tends to overcorrect on these dumpster fire type of cards because a minus 125 favorite is the chalk, and everybody's seeing the same things and going, I want that side. That guy ends up going off at minus 225. Now we got a different ball game, right? Like price is everything. That determines where you need to be. So like, yeah, man, it's these grungy, mangy little cards like this one where I feel like some of these big dogs are barking because the lines are just so spread. They're way too wide. The pay-per-views, not so much. I mean, every once in a while you get a Moicano that shows up and fights through a detached shoulder and, manages to pull off a giant upset like that. But I feel like against the higher level fighters, that happens less and less, and the chalk does tend to hold in those cases.
To me, I'd say that's true, but on the pay-per-views, like where you got Islam and everyone's trying to parlay up Islam, they look for other favorites. So all favorites on those, like, where the main event is a very, very chalky fighter, all those favorites on those cards get extra steamed, like unfairly.
Absolutely.
And everyone figures, oh, if I get to the main event, I can hedge out, right? So I would agree that like these sketchier cards, it's a little harder to get a read, but you get less parlay money on them too.
Yeah. That's also fair. And the chat is still going off on this one here. Glenbot liking the under 2.5 at plus money. Slick Montano 13 also saying not to go the distance. I think you guys are onto something. That's probably a fight that you might be able to find a violence path on. And I love me a violence bet. Actually, I'm glad you guys said that because earlier in the evening, somebody in the chat, and I apologize for missing it, I can't remember who said it. Somebody asked about the gloves, and I made a mental note to come back to that comment and answer your question. And I forgot until literally just right this second. I believe, don't hold me to that. I believe we're using the old gloves from here on out. I think that's what Dana said, is that we were doing the 2 pay-per-views with the old gloves and then the 2 non-pay-per-views with the new gloves. And after that, what was old is new again, and we were going to be forever with the old UFC gloves from that point forward. And I believe somebody saw, like on Twitter, I think somebody posted an article that the reason for that was like the production, because they had stopped production on the old gloves because they were assuming they were going to stick with the new gloves. And so they literally didn't have enough of the old gloves to be able to continue moving forward. And so I think we are getting the old UFC gloves from here on out. And I pray that's what's happening, but I can't guarantee that. Ethan, there we go. My guy. Yep. I didn't ignore you, Ethan. I love you. I'm sorry. So I believe we're using the old glove. So hopefully more finishes in 2025 here. All right, guys, moving right along. Next fight up, we've got Punahele Soriano, and he takes on Uros Medic. And there was this guy. I'm sorry, because I know he's still around. I always used to pronounce Puna's name Punahele, and he got so mad. Like, he's got to have like a Hawaiian cousin or something, because seriously, at the end of every single show, every single Puna fight, he would like type out the pronunciation for me, and he's like, put some respect on this warrior. It's Punahele. And like, he like rage about it on every single video I ever did. So I have to, I'm sorry. It just makes me giggle literally every time I read Puna's name, because I now have to force myself to say Punahele Soriano instead of Punahele, because he beat that into my skull. So shout out to you, you grammar Nazi, you, whoever you are. Hopefully you can comment after this one that I'm a little bit more on the mark. And shout out to my guy Razor Sharp Picks, one of the sharpest gamblers in the damn game, coming back around. Him and me on the Bears plus 10.5 this past weekend was awesome. If you guys need somebody, if you need somebody to talk dirty to you, college basketball and stuff like that I just have absolutely no ability or interest in, check out my boy Razor Sharp Picks. He does a daily live betting stream where he bets horses, and you should see some of the tickets he's posted. I think he hit for like 40K a couple months ago on like a 6-leg exacta bet on horses. Like, if you guys really want to degen out, check out my boy Razor, and he's good at it too. It's not like degen and lose, it's like degen and find a way to win. So shout out Razor, appreciate you being here, buddy. Punahele takes on Uros Medic, the doctor himself. And there's some really interesting stuff going on in this fight, man. Really interesting stuff going on in this fight. So Puna has dropped a weight class. He was fighting up at 185 pounds. And when he made the move down to 170, I thought, there's just no way this goes well, right? There's just no way. He looked great. He looked fantastic down at 170 pounds. He's very strong. He's very well muscled. And there's certain guys where there's a little bit of a skill discrepancy, and they make up for that with athleticism and power. And I think Puna's one of those guys. So at 185, he wasn't able to back people up the way that he wanted to. You know, when he first got to the UFC, we all thought he was going to be this big, beefy, monster that can just crack people and knock them out with one or two punches. He started off with 2 big KOs, but then we kind of got the exposure to the fact that maybe he doesn't have a super well-rounded game, and there was a bit of a ceiling. And the Roman Kopylov fight, my guy got absolutely diced in that spot. And it was like, oh, okay, like now we all know about where he's at. The nail in the coffin really was the Dustin Stolfus fight. I love Dustin Stolfus. He's one of my favorite mangy dogs. I argue for him whenever I get the opportunity to. But when he came out and lost via sub to Dustin, it was like, oh boy, yeah, you got to do something. And what he did was drop a weight class. So Puna's training out of Extreme Couture. I love Coach Eric Nixick. I love Extreme Couture. We'll talk about another Extreme Couture fighter that I'm a fan of a little bit later on this card. So I think he's in good company. He's in the prime of his career. He's now fighting at a weight class where that explosive strength advantage is going to be something he can put to use. He's got a good sprawl and brawl style where it's very difficult to wrestle him because he is a decent wrestler. Not a great one, but he's a decent wrestler. He can use that in reverse to, use those hips, flatten people out, get away from the ground game. I think that'll be very effective at 170 pounds. On the flip side of this thing, you've got Uros Medic, who is coming up from 155. And I always find these situations so fascinating because you've got a guy who's not quite big enough in his home weight class dropping down versus a guy who's too big in his home weight class moving up. And who's going to get the benefit? Is the guy cutting down for the new advantage going to be better now that he's pushing around smaller guys? Or is the guy who was killing himself trying to make a lower weight class going to reap the benefit of durability and gas and cardio coming up a weight class? It's very, very interesting to see those kind of paths run into each other. Uros is coming off a phenomenal highlight reel KO over Tim Means. Now, I know there's a lot of people out there that love the Dirty Bird, but that doesn't speak a whole lot to me. That was kind of the shell of Tim Means. That was what was left of Tim Means. Uros starts fast, man. He starts really, really fast. But he's not the most technical striker, I feel. He relies a lot on his speed, his explosiveness, and he is fast. Don't get me wrong. He will have a speed advantage here in this fight. But he's fallen apart a couple different times. He's gotten finished a couple different times. And he's fought a relatively low level of competition for the most part, looking through his record. Guys like Elon Cruz and Mickey Gall. Like, it's just not a great run. And need I remind you guys, he's from Alaska FC. You can get the fighter out of Alaska FC, but you can never take the shame off of somebody who is from Alaska FC. They just don't tend to pan out as prospects. I'll be honest with you, man. I'm kind of tempted to roll the dice here that Puna has one more good one in him. Uros Medic is currently climbing. This number is nearing minus 200. And frankly, he's not a guy that I think is worthy of that price tag, just generally speaking. I know Puna is not Miktabek Oralbai. I know he is not Jalen Turner, but Uros Medic is chinny and he's got good recoverability, but he's been cracked many times. Even in his lightweight fights, he was cracked and in trouble several times, and he's managed to recover and come back from that. I think at 170, Puna might hit too hard for him. I think we see the return of Power Puna at 170 pounds here, and he puts him away. I'm going to say Puna for the upset. Puna by KO.
Puna's actually my only straight bet of the week so far.
Let's go.
Money is actually coming in on Puna, though. I bet him at 172, and now he's like plus 172. Now he's like plus 160 most places. I actually think Medic has pretty good technique on the feet. He mixes in the body well, mixes in the body kick well, and against southpaws, he throws a ton of outside calf kicks. And I think, both these guys have power. Of course, Puna has more power, but I think Medic has got more technique. It's the wrestling that I think is going to get it done for Puna here. As you mentioned, former middleweight fighting a former lightweight. And at middleweight, Puna got out wrestled all the time. He had an atrocious takedown defense, like 37%. Maximov took him down like butter, 11 for 16. Puna's the reason that everyone thought Maximov was worth a shit.
It's so true.
Dalta champ has like a, not great 45% takedown success. He went 2 for 2 on Puna, but that was all at middleweight, fighting bigger guys. We saw in his one welterweight fight, he battered Miguel Baeza on the ground, right? It says he went like 5 for 6 or something, but to me, it looked like 3 for 3. Like, I don't remember any get-ups for Baeza, and I don't remember any failed takedown attempts for Puna. 4 reasons why I'm confident that Puna will indeed wrestle here. And let me mention this about Medic. A lot of people have trouble kind of putting their finger on Medic's cardio. They're like, sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. I'll tell you, when he has to wrestle, it's bad. If he can strike all day, it's good. And I get that. Like, there's some things I can do all day. Like, I can jog or play basketball, box, and not get tired. But like, think like other things, wrestling or riding a bike up a hill, I'm gassed in 30 seconds. Like, I get it that it's just what you grew up doing, frankly, right? And if Medic can strike all day and look fresh as a daisy, if you wrestle him, he gasses easy. 4 reasons why I'm confident Puna will indeed wrestle here. 1, Nixick will encourage him to. Who's Nixick's pupil with the most power? Francis Ngannou. He's won his last 2 fights by wrestling. One kind of by accident against Gon, but he wrestled on purpose against him and Fajeda, right? The second reason I'm confident he'll wrestle here is that he does not like to lose. I don't think there's anybody in the UFC that hates losing more than Puna. It really like affects his mental health. And I'm not making fun of him to say like that he was kind of like crying after the Stoichfush fight. He's like covering his face while the announcer's reading the winner, gives Dustin a quick dap and literally runs out of the cage. When he won his last fight, he told the Louisville, Kentucky crowd that he was going to jump off a bridge if he lost. And I think he's only like half kidding. Like, I have confidence that he's going to do what it takes to win. 3 is that Medic is far better on the feet than Baeza, less chinny, and Baeza is far more dangerous on the ground. In round 1, Baeza had him in a deep knee bar that like Puna's leg was straight. I mean, it was a deep knee bar. And he also threatened a toe hold and a heel hook. If you were down to wrestle with Baeza for 3 straight rounds, it would make absolutely 0 sense to come out here and strike with Medic the next fight out. And the 4th reason is like, we all know, Clint, you've talked about it a lot. We have to be worried if like these wrestlers are actually going to wrestle or if the UFC has told them not to. We could talk about Muhammad Mokaev.
Sad that's a thing these days.
Mokaev said it. Carl Williams basically said it. The one that sticks out to me is Miktabek Orobai against Rumbeski. He's fighting a gas bag power puncher with 33% takedown defense, and he strikes with them all of round 1 until his eyes are all busted up. I'm pretty confident the UFC told Miktabek not to wrestle here. I don't think Puna has to worry about that because he's not a boring nut hugger. He's not a lay and pray decision guy. He is incredibly exciting when he wrestles. He batters people with dominant, devastating ground and pound. So can he wrestle here? I think so. Will he wrestle here? I think so. I would pick Puna even if it was a pick 'em. He's my only bet at 172.
Love it. Absolutely love every single noun and verb that came out of your mouth in that breakdown, my friend. I love Puna. I'm planning on betting Puna. I kind of was hoping the number would move the other way. I was hoping maybe I'd get a little bit better on him because everyone is absolutely obsessed with Uros Medic. You want to talk about the takedowns? Uros Medic has a 55% takedown defense rating, you guys. So he has been very susceptible to that takedown in the past. Now, a lot of that probably comes from the 7 that Oralby landed on him in their fight. But Jalen Turner got one on him, and Jalen is not the greatest wrestler in the world. He's more of a knock you down type of guy and then a submission threat. So yeah, I mean, that's the majority of where that number came from, but he got absolutely rinsed by a guy in Oralby who's just physically stronger than him. Moving up in weight, that tends to be a thing. When you come up a weight class, you're not the stronger guy more often than not, and especially with Puna coming down a weight class. I would put my money that Puna is physically stronger than Uros coming into this fight. So I'm a big Puna believer. I'm a fan. I think he hasn't quite captured what he's capable of so far in the UFC, and I think this is a good showcase fight for him where I hope you're right. I hope he wrestles, but frankly, I don't know that he even has to. I do think he can win this fight on the feet as well.
Miktabek only landed 29% of his takedowns against Brenner. He landed 70% of his takedowns against Medic.
Yeah.
Like Miktybek's wrestling, one might say it's a tad overrated. And he absolutely rinsed Medic. And like I said, it's going to gas Medic. Puna's just going to be so hulking and strong in there. He's so heavy on top that he doesn't have to like worry too much about letting you up. He can just be heavy and land ground and pound. Pretty excited about this bet.
Love it. Love it. If I hadn't already used my dog of the week for the night, I'd be pulling the trigger on it here. So I'm with you on Punahele Soriano. Next fight up, you've got Austin Bashi making his UFC debut against my boy, Christian Rodriguez, C-Rod himself. Oh my goodness. All right, man. This one's fun. This one's exciting. I've given you a couple of dumpsters. Why don't you go ahead and kick us off on this one?
I thought for sure C-Rod was going to be a dog pick for me. I mean, he's come through as a big underdog against big wrestlers before, Rosas and Dolgarian, of course. But I think Bashi has better cardio than those guys. And what really did it for me is that C-Rod just gives up his back all the time. And Bashi has just such elite back takes that I'm pretty confident Bashi's going to win a decision here. C-Rod's got really good cardio. He made a bad decision kind of sticking his neck into the armpit of Julian Erosa last fight. Like, it was there so long. Erosa didn't even take the guillotine right away. Like, C-Rod left his head in there for so long that finally Erosa was like, all right, let me try. But generally, I think C-Rod's really good, very good jiu-jitsu. Brandon Olivas rolls with him, and Brandon Olivas has great jiu-jitsu and says that C-Rod's got some of the best jiu-jitsu he's ever seen. I've got a high respect for C-Rod. He's got decent striking. He's pretty durable. Like, C-Rod's good. I thought for sure he was going to be a dog pick for me, but Bashi is just so strong, so smooth, so good on the ground everywhere. He's not gonna gas, and he's not gonna get in bad positions. He's not gonna get reversed. He's gonna take the back, lock in the body triangle, and ride out to a decision here. Bashi actually like started his combat career in Muay Thai, and now he's still got some like diverse kicks, but they're telegraphed and he airballs them all the time. Now his striking is levels behind his ground game. So I think it's kind of like a really straightforward fight. I think we can all imagine it like really clearly. And I think Bashi decision is very likely.
Okay. Man, this one hurts my soul. It really does. I mean, you guys know I'm a C-Rod guy. I've always been a C-Rod guy. Give me plus money on C-Rod any day of the week, any day, always, twice on Sunday. Love this kid. Love his ability. He broke my heart in his last fight because against Julian Erosa, he was just too small. I mean, Juicy J is a massive man at this weight class. And I mean a man. He is 35 years old. He's actually at the tail end of his career, but he's a dude that probably should not be able to make 145 pounds at this stage of his career. And frankly, C-Rod was doing everything I wanted him to. He was rinsing and repeating the takedowns. He was looking for top control. He was playing it safe. He was playing it smart. You just cannot leave your neck out there against a guy like Juicy J. He's too good on the ground. And you listen to Julian Erosa after that fight, and he just knew it was coming. He went, I know he's going to wrestle. I know he's going to stick his neck out. I told everybody I'm going to submit him. And like, he knew without a shadow of a doubt exactly how that fight was going to play out. So, you know, tip of the cap to Julian Erosa on that one, knowing his opponent, knowing the game plan, and just playing it, frankly, perfectly. What C-Rod does as a specialist is cardio. The guy's durable as all get out. He's taken absolute beatings in round one from people, and he's got one of those faces. He's made out of leather. Like, he doesn't show anything. No cuts, no bruises, no nothing. Like, you cannot damage this man. I'm not sure what he's made out of, but it's not flesh and bone. So he just drags you into the depths of a fight. And then once he gets you into round two, he really starts to crank up the pressure. And most opponents fold under that pace and that pressure. You know, the Isaac Dolgarian fight. What's the scene? Have you seen that scene from Batman vs. Superman, where Batman wears the power armor and he's like beating the shit out of Superman, and then all of a sudden Superman like doesn't flinch and the punch just like stops on his face, and you see that look on Batman's face like, oh, I fucked up. That's exactly how C-Rod fights. Like, eventually your punches just don't have any effect on him anymore, and now it's his turn, and most of the time he will whoop some ass in that third round. And I feel like, especially against these top young prospects, it's round one, whoever. Round three is C-Rod. The entire fight comes down to round two. And if you're going to slow down, C-Rod will take over and he'll win a 29-28 decision. Austin Bashi is a guy that I've had circled, you guys. I've had my eyes on this kid for a long, long time. Now, I am not very good at betting Dana White's Contender Series. I have fully confessed and admitted that time and time again. Dana White's Contender Series is not my bag. But the one bet that I did really well on and made a very large bet on Dana White's Contender Series this season was Austin Bashi inside the distance. And that came out looking like one of my better bets of the year. I didn't have very many good ones, but one of my better bets of the year because he was dominant in that fight. Got it done and got it done very clearly in round 2. This kid Bashi is smooth. He's got good cardio. He's got excellent striking. He's got a great ability to scramble. So I do think this is going to end up being more of a striking fight than anything. And that kind of excites me because I think C-Rod is a little bit underrated on the feet. People know what he's capable of on the ground with his takedown defense. They don't really see him striking all that much because he's only fought wrestlers so far in the UFC. And I actually think we might be able to see some of his striking in this fight. I think this is going to be a close fight. And like any C-Rod fight, I think the line is probably a little bit too wide. But it also kills me because much like I don't want to fade shit with shit, I also don't want to bet against a prospect that I'm high on just because. So I lean dog or pass. I want to see Christian Rodriguez remind everybody and win this fight. The UFC continues to refuse to accept that Christian Rodriguez could be the prospect they're looking for. Like they legitimately just want this guy to be a stepping stone for their other prospects. And he keeps handing people their first O. I don't know what it's going to take for them to realize that he might actually just be the goods. I know he needs to drop a weight class, and really that's my biggest problem with this fight. After the loss to Julian Erosa, I said C-Rod is going to go back down to 135 pounds. He's going to get on the bike. He's going to get on the treadmill, and he's going to make 135 pounds, and he's going to remind everybody. He accepted another fight at 145 pounds. I don't like that. So he's going to be a little undersized here. I need to see these guys face off because Julian Erosa's size played a massive role in that fight. Austin Bashi is not the biggest 145 pounder you've ever seen. So I want to watch them size up and face off. If they face off and it's relatively even, you guys know me. I might be very, very tempted on a Christian Rodriguez bet here. He is always a good live betting option because you can literally watch the tides turning in front of you. That's just the way C-Rod fights. I'm tempted to say dog or pass in this spot, fading yet another hyped prospect, but this is a prospect who I really think has got the goods, you guys. I can't go against my guy. Massive bias, heart pick involved. I'm going to say Christian Rodriguez gets the win because I will always say that Christian Rodriguez gets the win. But this is a fight where I probably can't bet it, because I don't want to lose money rooting for my boy. And I'm not confident enough to say that this is a smash spot like the last couple of them have been. You guys know some of the hot takes I've spewed on this channel, especially when Christian Rodriguez is involved. And I've told you guys that give me a minus 125 and I'll take him against Cameron Simon. I told you guys that and no one believed me. I meant it. I can't say that on this one. Bashi's the goods. So, yeah. Okay. You know what? That's one bet that I will take. My boy Ethan trying to kick my ass starting off the year fresh. I like it. First fireball shot bet of the year. My boy Ethan Hershey has Austin Bashi, and I will take Christian Rodriguez. I like that, Ethan. I like that. We'll do that. All right. Let's move along, you guys. We got just a couple more fights to get to. We've got over 500 live viewers on the show here tonight. So thank you all very much for being here. As I said before, new channel, my channel. So please get subscribed because this is it. This is the landing page from here on out. We're not leaving you guys high and dry on another channel ever again. So please get subscribed and hit that like button. We got to let the algorithm know where we're at, and we got to send up the beacon for all the other diehards that are missing the show here on a Monday night. So whatever platform you're viewing from, please hit the like button and consider rolling on over here to YouTube so you can catch us live and help us out with these numbers. Next up, you have got Chris the Action Man Curtis finally making his glorious return, taking on Roman Kopylov. Oh, baby. So we just went from, there's a lot of my guys on this card. There's a ton of my guys on this card. Some of my favorite fighters ever. We've got, C-Rod, we've got Chris Curtis, we've got Puna. This is a card just full of guys that I love with my full-on heart, and that makes it really, really hard when it comes to a betting perspective. This is a lot like the last fight for me, man. a lot like the last fight. So Christian Rodriguez and Chris Curtis both fall into the same category of being underappreciated. These guys are so good, and nobody gives them credit for what they are good for. Similarly to C-Rod, I was able to just print money when Chris Curtis got to the UFC because he was a massive underdog against guys that he was fully capable of handling, and nobody was wise to how good this guy was. I remember that Phil Hawes plus 275 hitting like crack when my guy Chris Curtis took him out. The glory days. Since then, Chris Curtis has fallen on a bit of tough times. He was one of the most active fighters on the roster at a ripe old age of, 37, 38 years old, which I don't suggest. I know that's kind of the way that he likes to live his life. Obviously play it fast and loose, make as much money as possible, get in there as often as you can. I get it. But at 38 years old, you got to give your body a little bit of time to rest and recover, more so than if you were, 22, 24, that kind of thing. So my guy, Chris Action Man Curtis, needed to sit on the sidelines and let his body recover a little bit. Regardless, weird situations. The Kelvin Gastelum fight. I know everybody gets upset at Chris Curtis talking about it, and they say he cries about it, etc., whatever. That headbutt in the second round legitimately swung the entire fight. It was close. The Nasruddin Mavovov no contest, another situation, very sketchy. The Brendan Allen fight, he won that fight, man. Like, don't bullshit me. Don't get on me. Brendan Allen was running for his life in that fight. Like, Brendan Allen did good getting on Chris Curtis's back and getting the grappling going early in that fight, but he was hurt and on skates basically the entire rest of the fight. I don't know how they scored that fight for Brendan Allen. That absolutely should have gone to my boy Chris. So he has, in my opinion, every right to gripe about some of these tough calls, but we have to fully admit, especially as gamblers, that's the way he fights. It's not a judge-friendly style. It's not a style that is going to separate him from his opponents unless he's able to get that floating rib body shot TKO. He's going to find himself in close fights because of the way he fights. And that's the tough part for me. Roman Kopylov is a kickboxer turned MMA fighter who used to just get absolutely exposed on the mat. I mean, the Carl Roberson sub, woof, that's a bad look. Yeah, but he's come a long way since then. He's come a real long way since then. And he's never really looked better than his last couple of fights. Now, granted, Josh Fremd is an absolute bum, so it was no surprise to me that he took Josh Fremd out of there. Fluffy Hernandez lost. Everybody's losing to Fluffy. That's really not a problem. And then César Almeida, that win was one that really caught me off guard. I bet César that night. I bet César big that night, frankly. And Roman Kopylov hurt César early, and then was able to go to his wrestling and get on top of him and use that mixed martial arts game that he's developed. And it really worked out well for him in that spot. Now, it ended up being very, very close because one thing with Roman Kopylov, I feel like he does fall apart a little bit the deeper the fight goes. His kicks are nasty. His strikes are fast. He is a bit like a coiled snake, in my opinion. He does strike very, very quickly. But he does start to kind of fall into the same pattern deeper on into the fight, and the cardio does tend to betray him a little bit. And César Almeida, after getting dropped early in that fight, really started to work his way back in rounds 2 and round 3. And this is a world-class kickboxer that doesn't really have any grappling to speak of, was starting to defend some of those takedowns deeper in that fight. Chris Curtis, for the majority of his career, had 100% takedown defense in the UFC. This was the man who had the best takedown defense rating in the organization, because he's so tough to get under. He's short, he's stocky, he's extremely strong, and he stays really heavy on his feet. And people are simply not able to get in on those hips. I don't think Roman Kopylov is going to be able to take him down. And frankly, even if he does, I don't believe he's going to be able to wet blanket Chris Curtis the way he was laying on top of a guy like César Almeida. Now, what does maybe concern me is that Kopylov uses the blueprint laid out by Jack Hermanson. If he tries to use his speed and just kind of pick and poke and kick and dodge his way around the cage, that's his most likely path to victory in this fight, in my opinion. I could see Kopylov pulling off a fight like that. But if he doesn't, if he comes to bang, if he tries to get in there and throw down with my boy Chris Curtis, then it's going to be another action man style fight where it's close and he could get hurt to the body a couple of times, and we could see a very competitive fight. I think this line is too wide, man. You've got Kopylov, who went from being a pick'em against Cesar Almeida and going to a split decision. Now suddenly, because Action Man is coming back off of an injury, he's a little older, he's not very popular. He's a big dog yet again. These are the spots where I like to go to the well with my guy Chris Curtis. I like to take the big 2-to-1 shots when he's disrespected. I understand Kopylov is younger. I understand Kopylov is developing and getting better. I worry about that game plan. If Kopylov does go, 5-head maximum IQ, Jack Hermanson style, Chris Curtis may not be able to ever catch him in there, and that could be a problem, but we are in the small cage, and I think that's something that helps Chris Curtis a little bit. And then when they do end up getting into striking range, I still think Chris Curtis has the better power. So I will maybe roll the dice on Chris Curtis. Man, this is another one that's really, really tough, you guys. But as you know, I will never bullshit you. I will always give it to you straight. I want to pick Chris Curtis and I want to pick Christian Rodriguez because I am huge fans of these guys and their style, and I've made money on them in the past. That's one thing. I've got my hand caught in the cookie jar going back to it a few too many times, and I'm trying to work on that. So I don't know if I'm going back to the well with bets in these spots because, frankly, I might be going back to the well one too many times. I want to bet Chris Curtis. I'm not sure if I should. Give me some guidance, man, here. What are you seeing? Talk to me. Am I crazy? And should we be just running to the window to lay the lumber here with Kopylov?
No, all Chris Curtis fights are typically very close. Lots of split decisions. So at these odds, I couldn't blame you. I am on Roman because I think his footwork and his kicks are just going to be too much. Curtis really needs someone to stand in the phone booth with them. As a matter of fact, like if you don't just stand right in front of him and strike, he'll literally throw a fit. He will literally cry and whine about why is Marc-Andre Barriault using so much footwork. I don't like his personality. I do think he's a crybaby. He got grazed in the eye by Brendan Allen, and he acted like Allen was 3 knuckles deep into his eye. Now, in fairness, Curtis has had some eye poke issues in the past, like some vicious eye poke issues in the past. So, like, after that happens, if anyone touches your eye at all, like, it's kind of scary. But, like, anytime someone fouls at all, he throws an absolute fit. And as I mentioned, like, you need to stand right in front of him. He got the KO on Buckley, but Buckley was piecing him up and just looking like a footwork master against Curtis until a Buckley head kick kind of got caught on Chris Curtis's shoulder. And then Curtis blasted him with a nice straight down the pipe while Buckley was on one foot. But to me, Buckley is the far better fighter there. Marc-Andre Barriault went to a split decision with him and it was all striking. MAB didn't even attempt a takedown there. I think that's a concern for Curtis. Like if you don't just stand right in front of him, you're going to outwork him, out dance him and piece him up, I think. And as folks mentioned, the kicks are going to be loud and effective for him. Now, he has incredible boxing in the pocket. If you do stand in the pocket with him, he's got really good durability and incredible cardio. In this last fight against Brendan Allen, like it was a 5-round fight. He was on super short notice. He looked softer than normal. Normally he's, in really good shape. You could tell just by looking at him that he was not as shredded as normal and still had great cardio. And I agree, he probably would have won that fight if it wasn't for the last 15 seconds where he kind of just pulled his hamstring or whatever. And then Brennan got on top of him and landed some ground and pound. And it was really, really close. But I think he would have won if he didn't pull his hammy there. Yeah. So, I know Curtis is good, but I think Roman's just going to be too mobile and too diverse for him here. And, I don't expect any wrestling, but as you mentioned, the Roman wrestling is improving. He was taking down Cesar Almeida like butter. The first takedown he got on Cesar Almeida, it was so easy that he was like confused and let him up. And then he was like, oh crap, like I can do this. And then took him down and stayed on top of him from there. He frequently hurts guys with body kicks. And, Curtis he doesn't have like short arms, but because of his like kind of Philly style shell, like I do think he's susceptible to some body kicks. This is going to be a close fight like all Chris Curtis fights are, to his credit, but I'm on Roman by decision. One thing that's sketchy here is the very first prop that BetOnline had available was the over 2.5 at like minus 220. And a lot of times they don't let you parlay up stuff until like the Wednesday before the fight. They would let you parlay up this over 2.5 a week ago.
Interesting.
Yeah, it almost seems like a trap. Like they wanted you to parlay him up with Bashi or whoever, right? parlay the over up, that is. And so I don't know. I try not to read too much into that type of conspiracy type stuff, but
it's hard not to.
yeah, especially because they're just so reluctant on allowing parlay legs. It'll be like a couple days before the fight and they won't let you parlay up big favorites, but they were letting you parlay up the over 2.5 here. I do, a lot of folks have said maybe Roman gets him out of there midway or late in the fight with a head kick. I kind of don't anticipate that happening, even though, he does have great kicks. Curtis really comes on throughout the fight. If you wanted to bet Curtis, I would say wait until after round 1. I don't anticipate he's going to land anything at all in round 1.
No,
and then
he gives away round 1 almost purposefully.
Yeah. And then, Roman's got decent cardio, so it's not like he's going to gas or anything, but Curtis just has better cardio than pretty much everyone in the division, except maybe like a Fluffy, so I think Curtis is going to have a really strong round 3. I mentioned earlier, Curtis plus 3.5 is probably a good look. I do think he's probably going to win round 3 here.
I like that. I like Curtis plus 3.5 on the DraftKings spread. Let's see what that number comes out to. It should probably somewhere around even money, considering how big of an underdog he is. That makes sense to me, and that's actually probably a half decent angle to be able to get in there on my guy in this spot. So I may look for that plus 3.5 on Chris Curtis. The one thing that really starts to worry me just a little bit, though, is man, Father Time is undefeated. And Chris Curtis has put so much wear and tear on his body in such a short amount of time. And he's been having injury issues that he never used to have before. And that hammy in the Brendan Allen fight. And now he's been off. And like my guy in the chat said, I think he had a broken foot just like a couple of months ago. He is his own worst enemy when it comes to fighting at 100%. He is so intent on getting in there and often that he will take opportunities when he's not ready for them just because he wants to fight, as opposed to waiting for the good opportunity when he is healthy. And I could see a 38-year-old Chris Curtis starting to fall apart a little bit. I could see a 38-year-old Chris Curtis starting to have that wear and tear start to kind of lean on him a little bit. And man, you go back and you watch that Puna fight with Kopylov. He came on strong too. When he realized he had a hurt animal in front of him in that fight, it was all body kicks. And then as soon as he got you covering the ribs, he went up on top to the head. And it was a lot of damage, a lot of punishment in a very short amount of time. Roman Kopylov really put it on him in that spot. I know this team has prepared for Roman Kopylov now once before, so they've got a little bit more data on him. And I think, to be fair, Chris Curtis is better than Puna is. So, second time around with the better fighter of the two, good opportunity to maybe come back and get this win over this kid. Like I said, I'm on the Chris Curtis side, you guys, but there's a lot of reasons why I wouldn't dive in feet first. So Kopylov by decision is probably your most likely outcome. But the injuries to Chris mounting at the old age of 37 years old.
It'd be tough to do at this age, but and he's mentioned it before, I think he's meant to be a welterweight. Like he's just pretty undersized for this division. He does have long arm reach, but the leg reach of Roman and just the height of Roman is going to give him an ability at range here that's going to pay off, I think.
Absolutely. And that's a thing. That's a real thing. He should have been at 170. He just hates cutting weight. So I think he'd be far more successful at 170 pounds. So, I can't fault the guy. He's had plenty of success and he's cashing fight of the night checks and stuff like that up at 185, whatever, you do you, Chris. But I think if you really wanted to make a run at it, 170 would be the weight class. So is what it is. All right, guys, let's get to these last couple of fights here. Next up, you have got Abdul, Razak, Alhassan, and we just talked about César Almeida. César Almeida cost me a bundle, man. In that Roman Kopylov fight, he cost me a pile, and that was very, very, very unfortunate. This fight comes down to everything that always comes down to an Abdul Razak Alhassan fight, so I think I can be pretty brief on this one. Dude has 4 minutes of cardio. Abdul Razak Alhassan is judo thunder. And much like Chris Curtis, he's probably fighting up a weight class from where he should be. The reason he's up that weight class is because he is so full of muscle. The guy is as juiced and as jacked as you can possibly be in the year of our Lord 2025. He's 39 years old, and he's round one or bust when it comes to his KOs. Dude has been submitted. Dude has been knocked out. He's been to decision 4 times. He's lost all 4 of them. Like, he literally only ever wins by round 1 KO. He has a single, count them, 1 round 2 TKO on his entire record, you guys. It's just what he does. That's how he's built. And now he's taking on a world-class kickboxer. They are trying to give César Almeida the Alex Pereira path, and he's 36 years old, making his transition over here into MMA. And so far, it's a little up and down. He went to decision with Ihor Peteria. It wasn't a great look. You know, you feel like he should have been able to knock out Ihor, but it was a little competitive. And he TKO'd Dylan Budka, who's a bum, and he lost a split decision to Roman Kopylov, which he did come back and make it close. But the thing that worries me is he got dropped in the first round. He got in there and he got countered and dropped immediately. I worry about this guy's durability a little bit. I know he's the more technical striker. I know he's more talented, and the deeper this fight goes, the better it's going to be for César Almeida, obviously. But I worry about those first couple of exchanges. I don't think he has the power that a guy like Pereira has, that people are scared of, and that, you know, instant win nuke button that he's got in that left hook. César doesn't have that. He's more of a technique guy. He's more of a skill guy. He's going to pick you apart over time. So if he does win this fight, I think it'll be a round 3 TKO, something like that, where Abdul Razak Alhassan has just been beaten up for too long and he's taken too many of those nasty rib roasters that César brings to the table. But I also worry that César will not be able to get Abdul Razak Alhassan off of him early in this fight. And when Abdul wants to bang and he wants to get in there and close the distance in the pocket, if you don't have a counter shot to get rid of him, he's coming. I think this is your classic round 1 KO for Abdul Razak. And if he doesn't get it done early, then you get in on, you know, on César. But it's not a spot where I want to lay this kind of a price tag, because he very much could die in the first 2 minutes of this fight very, very easily. You've got a big favorite price tag here on where did he go? On César Almeida. He's minus 300 at this point. So not the kind of fight I like to bet, man. These round 1 or bust types of guys, I just want to avoid it, because I've flipped that coin too many times on whether or not they get out of that first round, and I feel like I'm on the wrong side every time.
Yeah, I'm not real big on César. I think his technique is a little overrated. I think his power is a little overrated, as you mentioned. He couldn't knock out Ihor, got taken down like butter by Roman. He beat Dylan Budka thanks to Travis Brown elbows. To César's credit, even though he has big-time takedown defense concerns, he actually has a surprising ability to stay fresh, even despite like grueling cage grappling type fights, which most of the time you get a former kickboxer and they're going to gas when they have to wrestle. You know, I kind of talked about it with Medic earlier. I think Abdul does wrestle more often than people pretend. He took down Buckley multiple times. Buckley's got far better takedown defense than César Almeida. I think people don't give Abdul enough credit for his actual technique as well. He's got really good range management. He's always at a reach disadvantage, but he always like lands at a pretty high clip. You know, when he was fighting Buckley was not able to land on him early. Buckley was kind of like stuck in the sand in the pocket, and Abdul was able to choose when to enter and exit the range really effectively. It's the cardio for Abdul, like you touched on, that has me not just absolutely hammering Abdul here. And also his top control isn't great. To his credit, he was absolutely gassed in round 3 against Buckley, and he was able to stay on top of Buckley like all of round 3. And again, Buckley has far better takedown defense than Almeida. This is a really, really, really tough fight for me. I actually bet Abdul at plus 240, but I didn't recommend it. It's just like an off-the-record personal bet. And I think he's got way more power, underrated range and technique, wrestling upside. And César is going to eye poke him like 4 times here. And I hope to God he actually gets a point taken away for once in his fucking life. Like, he should get a point taken away. It's really disgusting to me how these guys are allowed to like stick their fingers out nonstop. Then when they finally land an eye poke, they get multiple warnings. This one's a challenging one for me. I think the round 1 TKO angle is pretty smart and obvious, but I'm worried it's going to be like plus 350 or something. I'm worried it's going to be like damn near his money line. And I do think that there is upside for Abdul here if the fight goes on, if he doesn't just absolutely gas. Abdul's even older than César, which is crazy. And César has better cardio, as I mentioned. César's much bigger and longer here. But I think this is a very close fight. And it's not just around 1 KO or bust angle for me.
Okay. Okay. Fair enough. Man, I am so sick of my boy Lubecha not cashing his yam bag props. Do you remember when they first dropped those, point to be deducted type of prop bets and people were smashing 20-1s? Like, what happened? They haven't taken a point in the last 6 months. Like, they just refuse to punish fighters for cheating these days. Even when you've got guys like Chris Wyman, who's just eye-poking the shit out of everybody that they fight, to the point the fight has to get stopped. They don't take a point. They'll just go to a technical decision. It's pretty gross, man. I wish we could cash point deduction props, because if there was ever a fight that was going to happen, honestly, this would be the one. You remember Abdul Razak Alhassan should have gotten a round 1 TKO over Cody Brundage in his last fight, got a disqualification or a no contest because of an illegal strike to the back of the head. Instead, there could be some cage grabbing. There could definitely be some eye poking. Man, we have not had a point deduction in a long time, but if there was ever a fight where there might be one, this might be the one. This might be the one. We could bring it back for the hot take and get a point deduction prop.
We actually traveled out to that fight for Rose versus Tracy. I was so close. I could see Tracy Cortez's fake eyelash fly across the cage when Rose hit her. I was sitting right next to Brundage's family and girlfriend. Good looking, by the way. And they were very cool people. They were like asking me my opinion about all the fights. They're like, oh, what do you think about that, Brundage versus Abdul fight? And I was like, I'm on Abdul. They're like, oh, well, it's a close fight, right? It's like a pick 'em. And I was like, Abdul's like minus 160. And they were like, oh, they kind of looked at each other like that was news to them.
Yeah.
And they were super cool. When Brundage pulled a Brundage and the crowd was booing him so ruthlessly, I felt so bad. I was like melting in my chair along with them just because I even was like trying to hush the crowd a little bit. I felt so bad because they were illegal strikes. They were like 12 to 6 elbows to the back of the head.
They were straight illegal. I mean,
yeah.
He maybe took the easy road out once or twice, but like those legitimately were illegal elbows to the back of the head. You can't argue that, unfortunately.
It was like the most uncomfortable moment in my years and years of MMA fandom is sitting hilarious. Next to Brundage's family and training partners and girlfriend during that.
That's hilarious. Oh man, that had to be so rough. What a fight they would choose to go to. My God. I mean, maybe they go to all of them. But man, if my cousin was booked to fight Abdul Razak Alhassan, I'd be like, buddy, I'm sitting this one out. Like,
I imagine they're in Colorado because Factory X is in Colorado. I imagine they all live there. So
for sure. Oh my God. Hilarious. All right. Next up, I forgot to pin the tab over here. Next up, we've got your co-main event, Santiago Ponzinibbio. He takes on Carlston Harris, and one of the few, if not only, actual pick'em fights on the entire board. Man, I got to be honest with you. This fight threw me for a loop because when I first saw it, I went, Carlston Harris, of course. Like, why are they giving me pick'em? Why would they give me pick'em on Carlston Harris in this spot? Bro, I completely forgot about this man getting iced by Chaos Williams in his last fight. And I bet Chaos Williams that night. Like, Chaos is my boy. And I had some investment on him that night. I totally forgot that fight happened. And I ran it back and I was like, oh, oh yeah. Like, so this is an age-appropriate veterans fight, right? Santiago Ponzinibbio is 38 years old. Carlston Harris, even though he hasn't been around that long in the UFC, he is 37 years old, so he's getting up there himself. And he's fought a relatively low level of competition. You know, he got the big win over Impa Kasangane back in the day. Went over Jared Gooden, went over Jeremiah Wells, right? The infamous Anaconda choke that came out of freaking nowhere in the third round. But then he's got big, flashy highlight reel TKO losses to Chaos Williams and Shavkat Rakhmonov. So he's one of these guys that's a tweener, right? Like, he's better than the lower level guys, and he's definitely not one of the elite guys. And the truth is somewhere in between. Carlston Harris has some really weird striking. He's almost like a tall, lanky version of Trevor Peek. Like, he does the tomahawk type of hands at people, and he's pretty accurate with them. He actually hits like right behind the ear with those shots. So it's sneaky, and he's got big, huge mitts for hands. So like, he actually could kind of club people with those shots, and he's hurt a few people on the feet with those kinds of shots. But Santiago Ponzinibbio, I know he's 1-4 in his last 5, but I feel like this is a levels game. He lost a split to Jeff Neal. He lost a split to Michel Pereira. He knocked out Alex Morono, and that's great. And then he lost a split to Muslim Salikov. Like, he's fighting extremely closely with all of these guys. The big concern in there is the Kevin Holland TKO loss that he's got. Now, you want to do the anthropomorphic, advantage comparison type of situation here. Carlston Harris has the same build as a guy like Kevin Holland. So that type of lanky power that you can get from looping those big shots, we could see kind of a repeat of that. But I don't think that Carlston Harris has the same striking ability, speed, or power as Kevin Holland has. He's more of a grappler. And on the feet, there's just a levels difference between what these two guys are capable of. The difference is, I think Santiago does have a little bit more wear and tear on his body. Now, Carlston Harris may be the chinnier of the two, but I think the chipping away of the durability has been more on the Ponzinibbio side. So like, after looking at it and instantly going, oh, we're going to knock the old man out here again. Carlston Harris for the win, baby. After digging into it, it's like, oh shit, this is a pick'em. I understand now why it's a pick'em. So I've got to make a pick for the sake of the podcast, man. But this is a coin that I don't need to flip. I will pick Santiago to go ahead and win this fight. I think his boxing, especially in close, he can do something very similar to what Chaos Williams did. I just know he doesn't have the smoke the way Chaos Williams brings to the table. So, Santiago a couple years ago probably would have iced him the exact same way, but he's a little long in the tooth for that right now. Maybe both these guys are fully capable of getting KO'd. Both these guys are fully capable of getting a KO. It's a legitimate old man fight. So I'll say Santiago, but it's not one I think I'm going to put my money on.
You broke it down well. There's lots of unknowns. It's a pick 'em for a reason. I thought, when I did my write-up, I thought Santiago would be a slim favorite. He was plus 102 at that time. Money's coming in on him. It looks like he's probably going to close around minus 140 if I had to guess, because it was a pick 'em yesterday. He's a slim favorite on some books now. Like, money's steadily coming in on Ponzi. It's crazy. He beat Neil Magny in his prime, just jab low kick. Like, he was famous for the amazing jab low kick, and just got an attritional KO, which that's the type of KO guy he is. Whereas Carlston's just been getting starched by spinning back kicks and Chaos Williams. And this is a really tough one. Harris has, I think, somewhat of underrated striking because he's got some power and he's got good evasive footwork, but offensively, he's really just like looping. He's got pretty good cardio, well-rounded, obviously good on the ground, great scrambles, great chokes from all positions. That Jeremiah Wells fight, though, Wells was up 2 rounds and just had to not get finished and, stuck his head out to get front choked. Like, these guys' wins have been kind of lucky lately. Alex Morono was beating Ponzi bad, and then Ponzi catches him late. So, like, Ponzi's real close to being 0-4 in his last 4 fights, albeit against the top of the division, or, upper level of the division, at least Pereira, Kevin Holland. But I mean, he's a late lucky KO away from being 0-4 in his last 4 because Morono was putting it on him. Harris also not any really great wins, lost to Chaos Williams, got the lucky Anaconda choke over Jeremiah Wells. He beat Jared Gooden, who was on short notice and came in 6 pounds heavy, and then gets starched by Shavkat and Impa before that. It's like their wins recently are not great. They're losing to almost everybody. Co-main event. I'm on Ponzi, no confidence. I can't even bet any like overs or unders.
Yep.
Because they've been, knocked out a combined 7 times. But if I wanted to get to something risky here, it would be like, Ponzi by round 3 KO or something, just because it's an attritional type KO, as I mentioned.
Spicy.
Yeah, I'm probably not going to get there, right? I prefer to do that when a guy has bad cardio, and Carlston has pretty good cardio in my opinion. So maybe, ends and split covers you both ways and you're just hoping for a close fight. There could be some nice ground moments for Carlston. He does have good trips and good head and arm throws, which often work like the first time you try them, and then they don't work the second and third time you try them. So I could see Carlston having some good success on the ground early, losing the striking late, and splits probably, like plus 350 or so. I probably shouldn't force that either. It's probably just a complete pass for me.
Okay, good deal. And Ethan, my guy, don't fall for the fake guru in the chat. That next to his name is a V, not a check mark. So I know you got all excited there for a minute, but don't read too much into it. That's not the real guy. I'm with you, man. Sketchy fight, hard to bet. Play it safe. Probably not one we want to get invested on. It is time for your main event, everybody. We've been hanging out here for over 2 hours. This one, first stream of the year on the Die Hard MMA podcast. Of course, it had to turn into a good one with us chopping it up a little bit too much on some of these fights. We probably could have kept a little tighter, but that's what we do, baby. Let's get into our main event here this evening. We have got Mackenzie Dern taking on Amanda Ribas, the rematch that nobody asked for. Man, what a wild ride that these two ladies have been on since the last time they faced each other. I did not realize that the first time they fought was so long ago. It was back in 2019. We've got, 5-6 whole years of character development between these two before they ran it back here to meet with each other. And frankly, man, did you run that one back? Did you rewatch their first fight leading up to this?
Yeah, skipping, skipping 10 seconds at a time type thing. There wasn't a whole lot there. I could talk more about it, but yeah, I rewatched it. Probably took a year off my life.
Yeah, man, it wasn't even close. Like Ribas absolutely dominated Dern, pillar to post. Like the striking was on another level. The height, the reach, it was phenomenal. And every time, what have I told you guys with Mackenzie Dern since the day she stepped foot in the UFC? She needs a wrestling coach. Her jiu-jitsu is world-class. It's next level. She's incredible. She's explosive. She's athletic. She ain't got no wrestling. If she could just take somebody down, she would be a force in this weight class, but she refuses to go to wrestling class. Call DC, woman, get over and take a class. Like, she could be the champion of this weight class with some wrestling chops, but she won't do it. She won't do it. So she's outgunned in this spot, in my opinion, and I don't see what's changed in the last couple of years here. Now, I know divorced Dern is a violent creature that we all need to respect, but she's been on the speed run Jessica Andrade fighting path the last couple of years, and she's not really showing well for it. 3-3 in her last 6. She's gone back and forth with, strong contenders, people like Amanda Lemos and Yan Jianan. She's got a hell of a chin on her. I mean, for a lady, she's got a beard. she can take a punch and get up and come back and keep coming. But frankly, man, there's only so many times you can take a beating like that before it really starts to wear on you. And you see over time people, my favorite example was Forrest Griffin. He used to be the guy that would be beaten within an inch of his life and then turn the tables and come back and put you through the ringer and win the fight, right? That was his whole gimmick. And then one day, he just couldn't take that punch anymore. And it just eventually goes. I think the way Dern is fighting, if she keeps fighting people who can strike and who can hit and who have pop, eventually that chin is going to go, man. And I have really been on Amanda Ribas for being chinny. I feel like Amanda Ribas has had durability issues her entire career. She does not like getting hit. She does not take damage well. So I think Mackenzie Dern is very live to land something big and put her away. But I actually think in this fight, it might be the opposite. I feel like they run this one back. Dern has potentially regressed. She's not improved in the wrestling department whatsoever, which is her biggest hole in her game, her biggest weakness. Ribas, on the other hand, I feel has improved and gotten better. And even though she lost to someone like Rose Namajunas in her last fight, she showed out relatively well in that fight. I kind of think this fight finishes. We always say rematches never tend to go the same way the original did. And I think that's the difference in this fight. I do think Amanda Ribas wins, but I think this time she does it far more dominantly. We're in a 5-round main event, and I think this fight's going to get dragged out, and someone eventually is going to land a big shot, and someone is eventually going to go to sleep. The these two ladies really wanted to strike it out in their last fight. And again, I think both of them will assume they've got the advantage striking, with the durability getting chipped away on Dern. And then with Ribas already not having great durability, I think somebody could get put to sleep in this fight. I kind of like the KO. And I think Ribas will win the rematch as well. So I got Ribas. I don't mind a sprinkle on Ribas KO, especially like the round 3, 4, and 5 TKO props. That might be my hot take to start the year out. But I like the favorite here, man.
I'm on Ribas too. I was parlaying her at -170. Money's coming in on her. I'll tell you this, though. I think Dern might be the most well-rounded fighter in the UFC, if you know what I mean. I will, in all seriousness, say, though, I do think she's improving a lot. Her striking in the loopy fight looked vastly improved. She used to just throw arm punches with no torque. Like,
that's fair.
With that bottom half, you know, like, it was a shame that she wasn't putting anything into her punches. Like, she's creating no torque from her hips, legs, you know, quads, and all the way down to her toes like she should. She is now, which is kind of crazy because she was fighting out of Fight Ready a couple, like maybe 5 fights ago, a handful of fights ago. She went to Fight Ready, and I was excited about that because that's a great gym, and I thought it would help improve her wrestling. Then, like, you know, she had divorce issues, gym issues. She was training out of her garage, and was like, oh, shit, well, now she's never going to improve. She's actually improving for the first time. And I've heard a lot of breakdowns where they're like saying flat out that her striking hasn't improved. That's just flat out false. It has. And her wrestling has improved. In her first 9 fights, she got just 3 takedowns against like the lower half of the division. In her next 5 fights, she got 8 takedowns. Like, she's getting more than 1 takedown a fight now against the upper half of the division, where she used to land just 1 takedown every 3 fights. Just 3 in her first 9 fights. Her wrestling, it's partly because she's just getting so much stronger. Both of these women are. Like, they're both getting way stronger. You can see it in their shoulders, back, and biceps and everything. Like, they're both getting strong. Dern has more wrestling upside than she used to, far better striking than she used to, but her cardio is still a concern. As that loopy fight went on, she kind of lost all the good things that she was doing, to my surprise, in the striking, and she went back to like throwing arm punches with no torque, being flat-footed, being hittable. She, as you mentioned, she's got great durability, and I had the same thought. I do think it's going to catch up to her at some point. In the last fight, like, the thing that's less exciting about Dern than it used to be is her jiu-jitsu threat. Like, she's not tapping anybody now. And Ribas, not only did Dern go like 0 for 4 on takedowns against Ribas in the first fight, Ribas took her down because she had no concern about the jiu-jitsu at all. And I think that's still the case. Ribas has a really funky striking style, like really bouncy, really shoulders high. It's a very unique, awkward striking style, but it's pretty effective. That Rose Namajunas fight was damn close, and I was heavy on Rose. And I'm glad Rose pulled it out, but I was nervous. Like, Ribas was looking good in the striking. So even though Dern, like, I think round 1 could be close, Ribas is going to put it on her as the fight goes. She can wrestle and stay safe. The striking is going to get more lopsided towards Ribas as the fight goes on. That's all I got to say. Like, the bookie's expected to go over. It's like -200 to go over 4.5, if I recall. And, you know, I could see a late TKO for Ribas too. I was actually on the Ribas round 3 sub versus Luana Pinheiro because Pinheiro has such trash cardio. Freaking Ribas KOs her in round 3. That was really sad for me. I could see something similar here. A nice standing TKO against the cage in round 4.
Yep. I like it. I like it. Let's hit those round 3, 4, 5 sprinkles this week, baby. Glad to hear you and I are on the same page for the main event. Ribas for the win. It is. Guys, that is UFC Vegas 101, and it's an awesome start to the year for the Die Hard MMA podcast. My guy, make sure you follow free UFC bet picks on all social media platforms. I appreciate you being here with me, my guy, especially for this long haul here. First dumpster diving card of the year. We put in the work. We put in the legwork and put in a good show on this one. Let the people know if you've got anything coming up, if they can support you in any way, shape, or form, my friend. Thank you again for your time. The floor is yours.
Appreciate you. Instagram's where we do most of our work. We got the graphic design of the fight card out super early, like a week in advance. You know, you don't have to wait till noon on Saturday for the fights for the bum ass UFC to put out their fight card. If you want to make your picks and post them on wherever, you know, you can use our fight card. It takes a lot of work. I'm gonna try to do YouTube like every week. I don't know if I'll stick to it because Clint, it's so much work that you do to put out these shows every single week. So much prep goes into it. But I'm gonna try to get on YouTube more. So hopefully you guys can catch me on there. Like all my stuff is just free. UFC bet picks, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube. It's all the same thing. And I appreciate all of you so much. I know there's a lot of my people that watched tonight here in the chat. Appreciate you being here. Glad we're back. Let's be selective. Let's steal some house money and then be really risky with it, but not too risky.
I like that. I like that. Let's stack a couple of checks and then we'll roll those dice a little bit on some other cards with maybe a couple juicier opportunities. Thank you all so much for being here. This is the home of the Die Hard MMA podcast. From here on out, this is where we're going to be. I'll have some exciting stuff coming to you. All the news as far as what we're going to be doing moving forward. The Discord when I get it all together. The Patreon when I get it set up and ready to roll. You can find all that information and I'll be posting here because now it's my channel. So I can post whatever I want to on home base. So make sure you get subscribed, please, right here on the Die Hard MMA podcast. Make sure you get signed up for Bet Openly. We've got way more of you listening now than were at the beginning of the show. Guys, we are going to do a big giveaway to start the year. I'm going to do a free giveaway contest for Bet Openly. So what I need you to do is get signed up, get verified, get ready to go. Make sure you guys are able to cash in some free money thanks to our boy Gino, thanks to my relationship with Bet Openly. And of course, you guys are going to want to make sure you're using that moving forward for you. That'll do it. First of the year, baby. And if any of you OGs remember, bringing back that outro music, baby. Let's get out of here. Love you guys. Let's roll.